Chapter 127. I'm not pretending anymore. Actually, I am a spiritual body. Okay, show me how you draw a frost talisman, said the fourth elder as she took a deep breath. The frost talisman was a middle-grade talisman of similar difficulty to the earth escape talisman. But the problem was that she had never taught Lu Changxing the frost talisman. It was just over 4 months ago that she taught Lu Changxing the earth escape talisman. For Lu Changxing to have reached such proficiency with the earth escape talisman in 4 months was already incredibly surprising. Yet now, Lu Changxing was telling her that not only had he mastered the earth escape talisman, but he had also managed to grasp the basics of the frost talisman on his own. How could she not be shocked? Under the fourth elder's watchful eye, Lu Changxing clumsily began to draw the frost talisman. As expected, the first attempt naturally ended in failure. When you're drawing, the flow of your spiritual power isn't smooth enough, which causes it to dissipate a bit. On seeing this, the fourth elder gently pointed out the issue in a mild tone. Yes, grandmother, Lu Changxing nodded, then continued drawing again. But it was still a failure. The fourth elder continued to identify the problem. However, her look at Lu Changxing was different now. She could tell that Lu Changxing did indeed have a certain degree of proficiency with the frost talisman. At this moment, Lu Changxing took a sip of white jade 100 flowers wine and started his third attempt at drawing. Finally, under the fourth elder's gaze, Lu Changxing fortunately managed to successfully draw the frost talisman. Although it's still not proficient, it's evident that you have indeed grasped the basics of the frost talisman. The fourth elder looked at the frost talisman, her expression full of surprise and delight, but also somewhat incredulous. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would have never believed that Lu Changxing could become so skilled with the earth escape talisman in just over 4 months, while also mastering the basics of the frost talisman. This talent for talisman making was simply, completely beyond what Lu Changxing had displayed before in his talismanic aptitude. Changxing, how did you do it? I heard from the second elder that during this period at 9 Dragons Market, you have taken quite a few concubines into your residence, some of whom you are indulging in. The fourth elder began, her tone also uncertain what to say next. She had actually planned to use this check on his talisman-making skill as an excuse to give Lu Changxing a little scolding. But to her surprise, Lu Changxing's talisman-making skills had not only not deteriorated in the slightest. They were unexpectedly much more advanced than before. She was momentarily dumbfounded. She even doubted whether the second elder had been deceiving her. After all, how could someone who spends his days indulging in pleasures and fathering children have so much energy to devote to talisman making? Upon hearing the fourth elder's words, Lu Changxing thought to himself that the second elder had indeed told her about these matters. He fell silent, saying nothing. It's fine, as long as your cultivation and your pursuit of the talisman path are not delayed, said the fourth elder, not pressing him further upon seeing his silence. After all, with Lu Changxing performing so excellently in talisman making, what more could she say? Hearing this, Lu Changxing bit his lip and responded, I won't hide it from you, grandmother, and you might not believe these words. I have found that after being intimate, drawing talismans afterward feels extremely smooth. Even those aspects of talisman making I didn't understand or couldn't figure out, after being intimate more frequently, my thoughts started to clear up much more, and drawing talismans felt almost effortless, Lu Changxing stated. This was an excuse Lu Changxing had come up with after some thought, to justify why he seemed so naturally gifted on the talisman path, as well as why he had taken multiple wives and concubines to bear his children. As for how plausible this reason sounded, it wasn't too far-fetched within the cultivation world. Not to mention that there was a precedence that could very well explain what Lu Changxing had said. Spiritual body. In the cultivation world, there are a myriad of spiritual bodies, such as the 5-element spiritual body that boosts cultivation, the charming female body that is beneficial for dual cultivation, the calamitous poison body for poison cultivators, the supreme sword bone for sword cultivators, and many more. Among these, there are certainly some that are specifically related to the talisman path. These specific bodies make one naturally attuned with the great Tao of talismans, allowing rapid advancement in talisman making. As for whether there's a sort of body that improves one's talisman making skill through intimacy, Lu Changxing didn't know if such a thing existed. But the world is vast, who's to say for certain? Moreover, spiritual bodies can be either manifest or latent. The Lu family, being merely a foundation establishment family, could not be expected to have a deep understanding or extensive research into spiritual bodies. That's why Lu Changxing dared to attribute his condition to having a potentially latent spiritual body. As for whether this pretense would bring any trouble, Lu Changxing wasn't worried. After all, his condition wasn't that outlandish. It was simply a relatively unusual aptitude for the talisman path. The Lu family certainly wouldn't cause any trouble over such a matter. Perhaps, on the contrary, due to this development, his talent and potential would be further acknowledged, thus adding another layer of expectation to him. Chapter 128. Changxing, Grandma will speak on my own's behalf. 1. After intercourse, drawing talismans becomes very smooth, even some parts one didn't understand or know clear up after frequent intercourse, and my thoughts become more fluid. Upon hearing this, the fourth elder was startled and fell into deep thought. Although what Lu Changxing said sounded preposterous, she did not doubt the truth of his words. After all, anything is possible in the cultivation world. Not to mention improving talisman skills through intercourse, she had heard of even more absurd and unimaginable things. Moreover, after interacting and understanding him for so long, she had a certain trust in Lu Changxing. She felt there was no need for him to deceive her with such words. Furthermore, the facts were right before her eyes. Lu Changxing had proved what he said through his actions. Could it be that Changxing possesses some kind of physique related to the talisman path? The fourth elder speculated in her heart. Only that reason could explain Lu Changxing's situation. A peasant boy with no prior exposure to cultivation or the talisman path, yet displaying exceptional talents in the realm of talisman making. Through self-study and pondering in a year and a half, he became an elementary talisman master. And despite spending much time and energy on matters between men and women, he still progressed rapidly in the talisman path. She had considered this issue before, but had merely thought that Lu Changxing was exceptionally talented in talismans and also very diligent and hardworking. Now, considering the idea of a spiritual body, the thought that Lu Changxing might have a talisman-related spiritual body made everything seem reasonable. Grandma, do you know what's going on with me? Seeing the fourth elder deep in thought, Lu Changxing asked. Changxing, I have never heard of such a situation. The fourth elder shook her head and inquired, besides this, do you have any other abnormalities? No, before I just felt that my hands were better at making talismans and my thoughts flowed better after intercourse, but I didn't think too much about it or pay it too much attention. It was also after this visit to the Nine Dragons market that I gradually realized intercourse could impact my talisman making, so I became somewhat indulgent for a while, Lu Changxing explained. He wanted to attribute his condition to his spiritual body, but he couldn't say anything too excessive or preposterous. As long as he could justify his situation and gloss over it, that would suffice, to avoid having to worry about the Lu family's attitude when taking a wife, concubines, and having children in the future. Changxing, I suspect that you might possibly possess a special talisman-related physique. After a moment's thought, the fourth elder articulated her speculation. A talisman physique? Grandma, I had also suspected that I might have some spiritual body, but there's so little information on spiritual bodies, and I haven't found any similar cases to mine, Lu Changxing continued. Information regarding spiritual bodies is scarce, and I don't know much about it either. My speculation is based on the fact that spiritual bodies are different from spiritual roots and can represent all manner of strange constitutions. The fourth elder sighed slightly. Then, looking at Lu Changxing with a solemn expression, she admonished, Changxing, concerning this matter, you must not tell anyone else. If others come to know of it, it could very well bring you danger and trouble, the fourth elder warned. Grandma, rest assured, I definitely won't tell anyone else about this, and I would only mention it to you, Lu Changxing assured her. Very well, Changxing, don't worry, I will keep this matter a secret for you, the fourth elder said, feeling very reassured upon hearing his words. She thought to herself that this grandson-in-law was not only affectionate but also treated her as his own kin. She then said, "Chongqing, concerning your situation, I shouldn't comment too much on your matters with women, but remember, Chongqing, the talisman path is important, but bodily health and cultivation level are the foundation. If your health and cultivation level fall short, you will also find it hard to make advancements in the talisman path, so you must not indulge excessively in matters between men and women, and pay attention to your health and cultivation. Regarding taking a wife and concubines, as long as it's not excessive, I will speak for you to the Lu family and Miaoyun," the fourth elder said thoughtfully and seriously. She knew that Lu Chongqing, with his constitution, couldn't possibly stay away from the pleasures of women, hoping only that he would proceed gradually, not to deplete the reservoir to catch the fish and ruin himself in the process. "Grandma, I understand that too," Lu Chongqing immediately nodded. As long as you understand that, it's fine," the fourth elder nodded, saying no more, knowing that her grandson-in-law, aside from his indulgence in women and having children, was commendable in other aspects. He was sensible and knew what was important. She figured that his recent indulgence in Nine Dragon Square could be attributed to this constitution. Suddenly, she felt that Lu Changsheng's preferences and his physique were indeed a perfect match. "Chongqing, you should also be somewhat cautious about having children. Otherwise, too many children in the future will be a considerable burden on you and affect your well-being," the fourth elder added, thinking of Lu Changsheng's situation with over 10 children in just over half a year. In the family, children can be a source of strength and a legacy, but beyond a certain point, they can also become a liability. Their needs can distract one's energy and at times draw one into turmoil. "Grandma, you know that I'm a man without great ambitions, and I don't covet that fleeting hope of foundation establishment. I'm already content with my current life, and my plan is to have many children for a full household in the future. If any of the children have a spiritual root, I'll fully support their cultivation so that they can have an easier and further future," he declared. Chapter 129. Chongqing, Grandma will speak on Miaoyun's behalf. Lu Chongqing spoke, saying the following. This was not his first time expressing his aspiration publicly, so he appeared very sincere in his speech. "Okay, Grandma understands, just take care of yourself, and don't neglect your cultivation," the fourth elder sighed softly upon hearing this. She also knew that Lu Chongqing did not have grand ambitions and did not have a great pursuit in the realm of cultivation. It was only in the matter of wives and concubines bearing children that he had a certain obsession. But considering Lu Changsheng's 9th grade spiritual root, she couldn't say much about it and chose to be understanding. Moreover, for the Lu family, they hoped for the same from Lu Chongqing. A person who only sought a stable life with a warm family was much better than one full of ambition, solely focused on the path of cultivation. "Thank you, Grandma." Lu Chongqing bowed with a clasped fist in gratitude, knowing that this matter was now in the past. And with this spiritual body as a cover, whether for taking wives, concubines, having children, or advancing in the talisman path, explanations would now be much more convenient. "Hee, we're all family, no need for such courtesy with Grandma," the fourth elder said with a loving smile on her face. Then she proceeded to give guidance on drawing the frost talisman. After teaching the frost talisman, and considering Lu Changsheng's physical condition, knowing that his trip to Nine Dragons Market would mean he wouldn't return for some time, she taught Lu Chongqing 2 more middle-grade talismans. It wasn't to make him learn them right away, but just to explain them to him, so that he could more easily learn to explore them by himself in the future. After finishing the talisman-making lesson, the fourth elder also held her heavy grandson for a while and chatted with Lu Miaoyun before leaving. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. During this time, apart from spending time with his wives, Lu Chongqing also visited Li Feiyu. He met with this good friend to catch up and chat. Li Feiyu was still immersed in backbreaking work, acting as a butcher, nurturing spirits, casually working as a purifying craftsman, and even raising 2 black hogs at home. Knowing that advice would be futile, Lu Chongqing didn't urge him further. They simply had a meal, chatted, and when leaving, Lu Chongqing gave red envelopes to the children. "Let's go." Lu Changxing, accompanied by Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin, headed out, preparing to go to Nine Dragons Market. This time, Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin were also going to Nine Dragons Market with him. This was after discussion with his numerous wives and concubines. Each trip, he would take 2 wives to stay in Nine Dragons Market for a short while. 2 people were chosen because the second elder's flying boat had limited seating. Too many people would mean potentially no seats available. Before leaving, Lu Changxing also entrusted the business of trading talismans with Hong Yi to Lu Lanshu. If Hong Yi's people arrived, she could just take the talisman box to complete the trade. After all, such matters were simply a case of exchanging goods for money. Now, his dealings with Hong Yi had expanded, from the original 3-month deal of 30 low-grade talismans to 50 low-grade talismans and 10 middle-grade talismans. Lu Changxing and the 2 ladies arrived at the gates of Qingzhou Mountain, where they saw the second elder and 2 other Lu family disciples waiting. Yesterday, Lu Changxing had already informed the second elder in advance about taking Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin on the flying boat to Nine Dragons Market. Second elder! Second elder! Grandpa second! The 3 greeted the second elder with a salute. Since you've arrived, let's get going, the second elder said with a smile, nodding. He then released the flying boat and had everyone get on board. Chu Zhenjin, experiencing her first flight on a flying boat, was visibly nervous, holding tightly onto Lu Changxing. As the flying boat took off, she looked around curiously and would timidly lean to whisper into Lu Changxing's ear. But even these whispers, no matter how quietly spoken, could be heard by everyone else. In such a manner, after a day and a half, the flying boat landed safely in the outskirts of Nine Dragons Market. Lu Changxing arranged for long-term identity passes for Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin. Even though the women were only going to live there for about half a year, short-term passes were only valid for half a month, so it was better to get long-term ones. After bidding farewell to the second elder, Lu Changxing led the 2 ladies to their residence. Miss Little Qing, nearly 6 months pregnant, was sporting a baby bump. Seeing Lu Miaoyun, her face suddenly flushed with a hint of shame. Initially, Lu Miaoyun had sent her to Nine Dragons Market with Lu Changxing to keep an eye on him, and now she was greeting her, heavily pregnant. Miaoyun's sister, Zhenjin's sister. Guanxian also called out to the 2 women. Following that, Lu Changxing introduced Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin to the other women in the courtyard. Greetings, madam. Greetings, madam. Greetings, madam. Xiao Yuyao and several other maids saluted. Although most of these maids were also pregnant, since they had entered this world, the inevitable hierarchy between wives, concubines, and maids was still evident. Even though Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin had already been informed in advance about the multitude of wives and concubines Lu Changxing had in Nine Dragons Market, seeing a courtyard full of women, all pregnant, they couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Lu Changxing noticed the slight jealousy of his 2 wives. After making introductions, he took them out shopping, dining, and enjoying themselves. The 2 women had been living a monotonous life in Qingzhou Valley. In Nine Dragons Market, indulging in shopping and entertainment made them extremely happy, dissipating any minor displeasure they had. Over these 3 days, Lu Changxing spent over 100 spirit stones shopping and having fun with the 2 ladies. With Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin joining the household, Lu Changxing's life did not change much. He just moderated his actions regarding intimate relations a bit. Chapter 130, Changxing, Grandma will speak on Miaoyun's behalf. It was not like before, sleeping together under a large quilt each day. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month had passed. Lu Changxing received news from White Jade Tower that the maid he had purchased, Xiao Yueru, had been delivered and asked him to come over for the inspection. Immediately, Lu Changxing went to White Jade Tower and looked over his new maid. She had a dignified and pretty appearance, with black hair neatly done up, giving off a mature wife's charm. Her almond-shaped eyes were dull, but under her high nose bridge, her lips were plump. She would probably look very sweet if she smiled. She wore a light blue dress that showcased her tall and slender figure, with a full and proud bust that almost burst through the fabric. Although she lacked elegance, She was very eye-catching, and her full hips were also shocking, heavy like honey peaches. Yueru has seen young Master Lu. Xiao Yuer's face was still somewhat pale and haggard, her voice soft and gentle, like a willow brushing against water. Miss Xiao, are you willing to be this young master's maid? Lu Changsheng looked at Xiao Yueru before him and asked indifferently. Lu someone even if he spent money, never coerced anyone. Xiao Yueru also knew her fate. She couldn't refuse such matters. Moreover, the young man in front of her, from his looks and temperament, didn't seem like a bad person. She immediately showed a hint of a smile and bowed gracefully. Yueru is willing to be the young master's maid. Her smile was indeed sweet, like a delightful young girl, perfectly blending mature charm with the amorousness in her eyes and eyebrows. All right, Manager Feng, I'm quite satisfied. Hearing this, Lu Changsheng also showed a faint smile and spoke to Feng Jianyang. After completing the transaction with Feng Jianyang, holding on to Xiao Yuer's spiritual contract, he took her home with him. On the way, Lu Changsheng directly spoke to Xiao Yueru, saying the reason he bought a maid was to have children. As long as she could give birth to several children, he would not mistreat her. Regarding other things, he said nothing further, nor did he inquire about Xiao Yuer's circumstances. After all, having gone through White Jade Tower, these karmic matters were no longer his concern. He also didn't have the ability to help sort things out. After speaking these words, Lu Changsheng suddenly felt a hint of trance. He remembered, back when he was expelled by Qingyun sect, Lu Yuanding appeared and talked about finding a son-in-law, having 50 children in 20 years. At this moment, he and the past Lu Yuanding seemed strikingly similar. This is life. Lu Changsheng felt somewhat moved in his heart. Then, he laughed lightly and said, whether good or bad, one should live without regrets. Back home, because of Xiao Yuer's matter, Lu Changsheng had already talked to Lu Miaoyun. So after bringing her home, Lu Miaoyun had no objections. He arranged for Xiao Yueru to share a room with another maid. Since Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin had arrived, the courtyard seemed a bit cramped. Thus, a few maids ended up sharing rooms, 2 or 3 to a room. In the day-to-day life, Lu Changsheng saw that Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin were often bored, so he occasionally taught the two talisman making. He thought of leveraging his own talisman-making skill to see if he could make both women into talisman masters. Lu Miaoyun had been verified by the fourth elder and indeed lacked the talent for it. Chu Zhenjin was a bit better, but still not notably so. This made Lu Changsheng sigh inwardly, fearing that having his children learn a skill would be difficult as well. Without any talent, one could only rely on money. However, skills built up by money alone had their limits. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, over a month had passed. Xiao Yueru became pregnant under Lu Changsheng's care. And the child in Xiao Yuo's womb was also born. To Lu Changsheng's disappointment, this child did not possess a spiritual root. Half a month later, in the spiritual talisman shop, on the 3rd floor in the talisman room. Phew! Lu Changsheng let out a long breath, looking at the black dragon magical bead floating before him, his eyes filled with joy. After nearly 3 months of refinement, this magical treasure was finally ready for him to integrate into his body. Immediately, Lu Changsheng took off his top garment, revealing a well-defined and smooth chest. He planned to integrate the black dragon magical bead into his breastbone. However, each body part could only be integrated with one magical treasure. To integrate the black dragon magical bead, he would first need to remove the shard of the previous treasure from within his breastbone. Chi! With a light exhalation, Lu Changsheng activated the 100 Refinements treasure body art. A glowing light of precious energy circulated on his chest, and the black birthmark formed by a chunk of iron started to wriggle gently. Gradually, a black shard emerged slowly from his chest, bit by bit. After a long time, the shard of the magical treasure was removed. Lu Changsheng took a sip of jade bamboo liquor and then held a spirit stone to recover his spiritual power. Refining the black dragon magical bead and removing the shard had taken a toll on him. He needed to restore his inner spiritual power before he could continue to integrate the black dragon magical bead. When his spiritual power was sufficiently restored, Lu Changxing began to integrate the black dragon magical bead into his body. Under the concentration of his spiritual power, the black dragon magical bead slowly assimilated with Lu Changxing's chest. Like this, as time passed bit by bit, the black dragon magical bead completely merged into Lu Changxing's chest, integrated into his breastbone. This left the pattern of a black dragon magical bead on his chest. As the black dragon magical bead entered his breastbone, Lu Changxing felt a powerful force washing over and refining his flesh, meridians, and bones. He felt as if his 100 refinements treasure body art was training and improving at every moment. Is this the effect of integrating a magical treasure into my body? It's 100 times better than the previous magical treasure shard. With this force refining me, even if I don't cultivate, just give it a couple of years and my 100 refinements treasure body art will break through to the second level. Lu Changxing quietly savored the refining power of the black dragon magical bead, his face full of surprise and happiness. The effect of integrating the magical treasure into his body was several times better than he had anticipated. If he continued to cultivate like this, the strength of his body refinement would fully catch up with his qi refinement. I wonder when he'll be able to draw a qi refinement cultivation technique. I'm so done with this lousy returning origin technique, Lu Changxing thought to himself. If he had a qi refinement cultivation technique like the 100 refinements treasure body art, not only would his foundations and strength improve, but his cultivation speed might also increase. However, Miaoyun is about to give birth soon. If this child possesses a spiritual root, then according to my earlier guess, there is a very likely chance to receive a draw. Lu Changxing let out a long sigh, thinking to himself. At that moment, he prepared to put on his top garment, looking at the dark, gleaming pattern on his chest, where an indistinct image of a flood dragon seemed to come and go, and he nodded in satisfaction. It looks much better now. In his view, this pattern was so much more attractive than the previous one from the magical treasure shard, which looked like a black birthmark. There's only a bit of spiritual essence left in this shard, which makes it unnecessary to integrate it elsewhere, Lu Changxing remarked as he looked at the shard in his hand. This shard had been in his body for nearly a year already, helping him in his cultivation. Most of the spiritual essence inside was consumed. Otherwise, he could have integrated the shard into a hand or foot bone to assist his cultivation. Seeing that it was getting late, Lu Changxing got up to tidy up and left the spiritual talisman shop to head home. Chapter 131. Lao Lu, do you want a wife? _1. Lu Daoist, I don't know if your spiritual talisman shop has sold out of supreme talismans? Just as Lu Changxing reached his home's entrance, the courtyard door to the left opened. A middle-aged man in his 40s with thick eyebrows, a square face, and a calm demeanor stepped out and called out to Lu Changxing upon seeing him. Xia Daoist, all 3 of the supreme talismans in my shop for this month have already been sold. Are you going to hunt some demon beast again that you actually need to buy a supreme talisman? Lu Changxing said, somewhat surprised. The middle-aged man was named Xia Long and had moved in a few months ago as a new neighbor. Like the neighbor who had moved away previously, he said he usually hunted demon beasts to earn money. As for the truth of that statement, Lu Changxing did not know. This neighbor often went out and wasn't home much, but he knew that Lu Changxing was a talisman master and that he was the owner of Lu family's spiritual talisman shop. He would usually come to Lu Changxing to buy talismans. I've made plans with a few fellow Daoists to explore an ancient tomb, so I thought to purchase a few talismans for protection from you. Xia Long spoke up. I only have 3 supreme talismans in my shop each month, and they are usually reserved. If you want one, Xia Daoist, I can keep one aside for you when we restock. If you're in urgent need, I still have a few premium talismans on me. I don't know if they would be of use to you, Xia Daoist? Lu Changxing said so. He did possess supreme talismans he had made, but they weren't readily available for sale. After all, the shop sold only 3 each month. Just 1 extra could attract unwanted attention from the observant. However, selling premium talismans was no big deal. He had plenty on hand and didn't mind selling more. May I ask which premium talismans you have on you, Lu Daoist? Xiaolong asked. Lu Changsheng listed several types of premium-grade premium talismans. Afterward, Xia Long purchased a thunder summoning talisman and an escape talisman. Both talismans were sold for 50 spirit stones each, but Lu Changsheng gave a discount and charged Xia Long 90 spirit stones. The other party was straightforward and did not haggle. Thank you, Lu Daoist. Xia Long put away the talismans and bowed slightly. You are too polite, Xia Daoist. With 90 spirit stones in his account, Lu Changsheng felt quite pleased with himself. After all, this money was for his personal account. And the cost of making those 2 talismans was only 4 or 5 spirit stones. A profit margin of 20 times, absolutely exorbitant. Xia Long then took his leave shortly after. Running a dungeon? I've never experienced anything like that. There's no need for me to try it, though. Although the return is high, the risk is great too. A single misstep, and it could cost you your life. Lu Changsheng watched Xia Long's retreating figure and shook his head slightly, entering his home. He was somewhat curious about exploring the ancient tombs and secret realms like others did, but he had no desire to try such endeavors. With the system at his side, he didn't need to struggle and fight as Xia Long did. All he needed was to honestly pursue his path without contest or strife, calmly getting married, taking concubines, raising children, and the great Tao could be expected. If he worked too hard, striving too much, he might end up on an inferior path. Half a month later, the child in little Qing's belly was born. This child also had no spiritual root, which caused Lu Changsheng to let out a sigh. The firstborn children of Chu Zhinzhen and Lu Miaoyun had spiritual roots, which had filled him with great expectations for the offspring of his wives and concubines blessed with spiritual roots. But now, 3 children in a row, born to wives and concubines with spiritual roots, were without them. It inevitably brought some disappointment to his heart. Phew, no matter, there's no rush, the chance will come eventually. After all, this kind of thing only has a probability of 1 or 2 in 10. Lu Changsheng exhaled deeply, consoling himself. And with the birth of 2 new babies, Lu Changsheng was faced with another concern, child-rearing. In 9 Dragons Market, raising children was naturally no problem. But as the number of children grew, it would become somewhat inconvenient. One reason was that the courtyard was too small to accommodate all of them. As the children grew, there was also no place for them to play or have activities. Furthermore, when the children reached a few years older, he had to consider their education. After pondering for a moment, Lu Changsheng planned to send the children to Qingzhou Mountain for upbringing when the second elder returned there. In Qingzhou Mountain, not only was the environment better and more spacious, but the children also had companions. A bunch of brothers and sisters could grow up together and strengthen their relationships. Additionally, in 9 Dragons Market, children over 6 years old would be charged a residence fee, which was utterly ridiculous. Is the stress of raising children one of the reasons cultivators don't like having them? After all, for a cultivator, the ages between 20 and 50 are considered prime years, the time to make progress with vigor. If one has children at that age, it's an added burden. Not only do you have to nurture and educate the child, but whatever you do in the future, you also have to consider the child. Lu Changsheng suddenly thought to himself. He felt that if he did not have Qingzhou Mountain as a strong rear base, it would be quite a burden to support so many wives and children within the cultivation marketplace. He might only be able to set up his family and make a living in the mundane world. At this moment, Lu Changsheng gained a deeper understanding of the land aspect in the wealth, companionship, and land triad. He realized that to start a family and establish his own cultivation family, it was essential to have his own land. Whether it was owning several properties in a cultivation marketplace like 9 Dragons Market or like the Lu family, possessing a spiritual vein-blessed land such as Qingzhou Mountain. In the blink of an eye, another month passed. Lu Changsheng's life continued as usual. Every day he engaged in cultivation, talisman making, went to work, and occasionally accompanied his wives and maids on shopping trips. Chapter 132, Lao Lu, do you want a wife? After all, with these maids pregnant, a stroll around the street is beneficial for their physical and mental health. And during this past month, both Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin had conceived their second and third child, respectively. These events were also under Lu Changsheng's control. Now, with half a year since the two ladies had their babies, their bodies had fully recuperated. The only downside was that this baby-making had left both women with virtually no progress in their cultivation. For this matter, Lu Changsheng could only compensate them doubly later on. One day, Lu Changsheng took his wives, concubines, and maids out shopping. "Husband, I want to eat this." "Husband, I think this dress suits little Yuner very well." "Zhenzhen sis, does this dress make me look pretty?" The wives and concubines chatted away cheerfully. Time is the cure for everything. Now, the numbness and lifelessness in Xiao Yuo's eyes had completely disappeared, and she had become much more cheerful. Xiao Yueru had improved a lot over these past few months as well. Looking at her slightly bulging stomach, occasionally stroking it, a motherly smile appeared on her face. All right, let's buy it." Lu Changsheng responded readily to every request his wives and maids made. As long as he didn't spend lavishly on magic artifacts or precious items, or on buying maids, he could save quite a bit of spirit stones each month. Xiao Yueru, standing aside, looked at Lu Changsheng, whose face was full of gentle smiles, and her beautiful eyes sparkled with an unfathomable light. In this world, the status of maids and concubines is very low. 4 maids like them who had ended up in the White Jade Tower, most of their fates were to be treated as tools for reproduction or outlets for lust. But Lu Changsheng treated them not as equals to his wives, but still exceptionally well. Even better than back in her own family. They didn't need to toil for a living, had spirit rice and spirit food for every meal, along with sweet spirit delicacies. They were also cared for and attended to regularly. Even if it was just a simple gesture of concern, it deeply touched their hearts. After shopping, Lu Changsheng and the ladies returned home. As they entered the door, they happened to meet Yu Maoqing, who was also returning home. He was accompanied by his wife, Yu Ningrong, and a girl about 16 or 17 years old, cute and lovely. Yu Maoqing saw Lu Changsheng, flanked closely by Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin, holding his arm affectionately. And followed by 4 maids, he really didn't know what to say. He couldn't understand how someone could live a life like Lu Changsheng's. Everyone was the son-in-law of a cultivation family. Why was the difference so vast? Lu Changsheng was a talisman master, but he himself was also a spirit cooking chef. Yu Maoqing was truly envious. But he still greeted Lu Changsheng with a smile and a nod. "Husband, what do you think about marrying Xianxia off to Lu Changsheng?" Just as he entered the house, Yu Maoqing heard a voice. It was his wife Yu Ningrong speaking. "My lady, you want to betroth Xianxia to Lu Changsheng?" Yu Maoqing was slightly stunned and replied telepathically. Yun Xianxia was the daughter of his wife's good friend. Recently, after her parents suffered an accident and left only her behind, she was left in the care of his wife. They had just brought Yun Xianxia to the 9 Dragons marketplace today, preparing to arrange for her to help out in the shop. He hadn't expected his wife to think of betrothing Yun Xianxia to Lu Changsheng at this moment. Thinking about Lu Changsheng being surrounded by so many wives and maids, and now his wife wanting to marry Yun Xianxia to him, it almost made him grit his teeth to dust. "Damn it, you are really something." Yu Maoqing thought enviously. That's right, Xianxia is soft-hearted and not very independent. Working as a helper in our shop is not a long-term solution. Sooner or later, she has to marry into a good family. Although Lu Changsheng has many wives and concubines, through my contacts and chats with them, I feel that he treats his wives rather well. Even as a concubine, it would be a good family to marry into. Yu Ningrong said so. Could work. I've known Lu Changsheng for a while now, and aside from being overly fond of women and having children, he is a decent person in other aspects. Not only is he a middle-grade talisman master, but his appearance, temperament, and personality are all first class. If we arrange for Xianxia to marry him, it would be a good match. And since we are here and familiar with each other, I reckon Lu Changsheng wouldn't treat Xianxia unfairly. After pondering for a moment, Yu Maoqing spoke. He might envy Lu Changsheng, but after interacting for so long, he felt that Lu Changsheng was a pretty good and reliable person. Upon hearing this, Yu Ningrong nodded slightly. She then looked at the young girl beside her and said, "Qianqian, what do you think of that talisman Master Lu just now?" "Talisman Master Lu, the one across the door?" "He seems suave and gifted, just a bit of a philanderer," Yun Qianqian uttered, pursing her lips. Indeed, Talisman Master Lu is quite the romantic. Aside from these wives and maids, he has several more wives and about a dozen maids at home. Yu Ningrong straightforwardly said. "But I've met him a few times and spoken with his wives. I know that although Talisman Master Lu is flirtatious, he treats his wives quite well. Your mother entrusted you to my care, and ultimately you have to marry into a good family. If you're willing, Aunt Rong can arrange a marriage for you and betroth you to Talisman Master Lu." Yu Ningrong continued to speak. Upon hearing this, Yun Qianqian was slightly taken aback. Thinking of Lu Changsheng's handsome and elegant appearance and that he was a talisman master, her eyes lowered and a blush crept onto her cheeks. She whispered, "As Aunt Rong decides." Chapter 133, Lao Lu, do you want a wife? Yu Ningrong couldn't help but smile at the scene. To herself, she thought that the talisman Master Lu was truly handsome. Just one encounter and her niece was behaving like this. She gently stroked Yun Qianqian's hair, then said aloud, "All right, then it's settled. Later, your Aunt Rong will go ask for you." The next day, Lu Changxing was working at the spiritual talisman shop when he heard from Zhang Shan that Yu Maoqing was looking for him. He descended the stairs with some confusion. "Brother Lu, do you want a wife?" Yu Maoqing asked directly as soon as he saw Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing was startled by the question. What the hell? He already had so many wives. Why was someone asking if he wanted another? Do I look like I lack wives? Seeing Lu Changxing's surprised expression, Yu Maoqing explained the situation with Yun Qianqian to him. He, all right, then send her over, Lu Changxing said with a chuckle after hearing Yu Maoqing's words. His approach to taking wives and concubines nowadays was naturally not as simple as before. He had several major requirements in mind. First, she must possess a spiritual root. Next, he did not want someone with too high of a cultivation level. No good in terms of character? Unwanted. Profound family background? Unwanted. Burdened with karma and entanglements? Unwanted. As for attributes like appearance, figure, gentleness, and understanding, or being alone and helpless, those were bonus points. The Yun Qianqian whom Yu Maoqing introduced was a perfect match for his criteria. She possessed an 8th grade spiritual root, was at the 2nd level of qi refinement, and had a gentle and understanding personality. Not only was she without a family background, but her parents had both passed away, leaving her alone. The only close person she had was Yu Maoqing's wife, Yu Ningrong. And Lu Changxing had also met this Yun Qianqian the day before. Although he hadn't looked at her closely, he could tell she was fairly attractive and above average in terms of looks. For Lu Changxing, such a woman could naturally be taken as a concubine. You agree just like that? Yu Maoqing was startled when Lu Changxing immediately agreed after he had finished speaking. Otherwise, Lu Changxing replied, "You don't need to check with your wife first?" Yu Maoqing expressed his confusion. Yuner is very understanding. She will surely understand and support me in this matter, Lu Changxing said. Damn it, you're really infuriating, you know? This is even more painful than killing me. Yu Maoqing stood up and left upon hearing these words. He then said he would bring Yun Qianqian to Lu Changsheng's house later to settle the matter. It seems having a few friends does have its benefits, Lu Changxing thought to himself after Yu Maoqing had left. As night fell, Lu Changxing finished work and headed home. Before Lu Changxing could bring up Yun Qianqian's matter, Lu Miaoyun brought it up proactively with him. Not only had Yu Maoqing discussed it with Lu Changxing, Yu Ningrong had also spoken about it with Lu Miaoyun that day. And Lu Miaoyun had long since come to terms with this aspect of Lu Changxing's life. Knowing her husband always wanted to bring more wives and concubines into the household for a blessing of many children, she naturally agreed immediately to the favorable concubine arriving at their doorstep. "My dear Yuner, marrying you is truly the greatest fortune of my life," Lu Changxing said. Just as they were about to have dinner, he came to notify them that Yu Maoqing and his wife had come for a visit. Lu Changxing instantly knew they must have come about Yun Qianxian's matter. He immediately got up to receive them. "Brother Yu, sister-in-law," Lu Changxing greeted Yu Maoqing and Yu Ningrong with hands clasped together. A young girl followed behind the couple. It was Yun Qianxian. Looking at Yun Qianxian, he saw that she had dressed up specially for the occasion. Her black hair was done up in an elaborate coiffure, decorated with a jade butterfly hairpin with tasseled pearls hanging from it. She wore a lake blue tube-top dress, with a figure that was not spectacular, but was starting to take shape. Her almond-shaped eyes were clear and animated, betrayed a hint of shyness at this moment. Her oval-shaped face was sweet and endearing, the kind one could keep looking at without tiring, pleasing to the eye. "Brother Yu, Sister Rong, you haven't dined yet, right? You've come at the perfect time. Join us for a meal." Lu Miaoyun also came out, speaking to Yu Maoqing and Yu Ningrong. Then, turning to the slightly nervous Yun Qianxian with an air of grace and poise, she said, "You must be Qianxian, right?" "Lu's sister," Yun Qianxian called out. Although she called Yu Maoqing and Yu Ningrong uncle and auntie, it obviously wasn't appropriate to call Lu Miaoyun auntie now. After all, the day before, Yu Ningrong had made Lu Changsheng's situation and their family circumstances clear to her once more. So her current visit meant that the matter was effectively settled. "Come on, let's go inside and have something to eat." Lu Miaoyun warmly took Yun Qianxian's hand and invited Yu Maoqing and Yu Ningrong into the house. Yu Maoqing, witnessing the scene before him, felt as if he were in a magical world. When the three entered the dining hall and saw Lu Changxing being surrounded by a group of women, they were even more bewildered. They knew Lu Changxing had numerous wives, concubines, and maids. But seeing the large dining table encircled by more than a dozen women, many of whom were obviously pregnant, presented a sight that was too intense, too staggering. However, seeing that all the women seemed happy, and the food comprised spirit rice, spiritual vegetables, and demon beast meat, along with spiritual tea to drink, they felt more at ease. Soon, Yu Maoqing and Yu Ningrong, accompanied by Yun Qianxian, took their seats and ate a few bites, and thus the concubine acceptance was considered settled. There wasn't much red tape involved. They just planned to book 2 tables at the Jade Meal Pavilion after a couple of days to treat a few neighbors and friends, to make it official. Lu Miaoyun largely took charge of this event. It was the first time Lu Changxing accepted a concubine with the active involvement of his wife, Lu Miaoyun. 3 days later, Yun Qianxian officially crossed the threshold of the house. With a soft song from a young girl, she formally became one of Lu Changsheng's concubines. That year, Lu Changxing was 24 years old. With 5 wives, 9 concubines, 2 favored consorts, and 15 maids. Chapter 134, Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. 77 children. Underscore the peaceful and leisurely life always seemed to fly by quickly. In the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. During this month or so, Yun Qianxian had perfectly integrated into the big family of Lu Changxing and was successfully pregnant with a child. This made Yu Maoqing and his wife couldn't help but marvel at Lu Changsheng's efficiency. During a conversation, Yu Maoqing asked Lu Changxing how he would support so many children in the future. While it's said that the poor raise their children one way and the rich another, if a child had a spiritual root, no matter what, it would still require a considerable amount of expense. Faced with this inquiry, Lu Changxing exhibited an air of nonchalance, indicating that as a talisman master, he had some savings. He was also saving money for his children's future upbringing. After all, he didn't mind suffering a bit himself, but he absolutely couldn't let his children suffer. Hearing Lu Changsheng's words, Yu Maoqing immediately revealed an expression like that of an old man scrutinizing a smartphone. He believed Lu Changxing wouldn't let his children suffer. But no matter how he looked at it, he didn't think Lu Changxing was the type to let himself suffer either. Yu Maoqing had never seen anyone who knew how to enjoy life quite like Lu Changxing. Not only was he served by a host of wives and maids, his eating, drinking, spending, and shopping habits also made him, with a mere 10 spirit stones a month, look on with great envy. However, things like this Yu Maoqing wouldn't inquire too much about. With the relationship involving Yun Qianxian, although there was more interaction between the two families, it wasn't as if they were like in-laws. Knowing that Yun Qianxian was doing well in Lu Changxing's household was enough for them. On this day, Lu Changxing was in the spiritual talisman shop drawing talismans. All of a sudden, he felt an indescribable sense of wonder. It gave Lu Changxing the premonition that his spiritual root had advanced. From an 8th grade spiritual root to a 7th grade spiritual root. Did I just have a child with a spiritual root born? Under this thrilling realization, Lu Changxing was suddenly startled and his face showed a surprised delight. The talisman he was creating failed, and the paper emitted a wisp of blue smoke. Lu Changxing didn't mind, and after a brief sensing he shook his head and said, "No, this is not the thrill of a child's spiritual root contributing. This is just a natural enhancement, an elevation from an 8th grade spiritual root to a 7th grade spiritual root." That's right, the spiritual roots of my 4 children are still developing, so it's as if my own spiritual root is growing as well. With the previous enhancements, my spiritual root had already neared the pinnacle of 8th grade, and now as it grows, it has naturally advanced to 7th grade. Lu Changxing quickly understood what was happening. Based on the timing, it was indeed true that 2 of his wives on Qingzhou Mountain would be giving birth to their children around this time. But he could feel that he hadn't received any enhancement thrill from the spiritual root. There was only an inherent feeling that his spiritual root had advanced. 7th grade spiritual root. Phew, I've finally advanced to a 7th grade spiritual root, just one more step, and it'll be a middle grade spiritual root, an immortal seedling. Lu Changxing took a deep breath and exhaled it slowly, his face full of joy. The spiritual root was the foundation of one's cultivation. For Lu Changxing, the spiritual root was not just the foundation of his cultivation. It was also related to the upper limit of his future children's spiritual root quality. After all, the quality of the parents' spiritual roots can influence that of their children's. The better his own spiritual root, the better his future children's spiritual root potential would be. Although he was working hard to improve the quality of his children's mothers, how could he, as a father, lag behind? Going on like this, the later the children are born, not only will the conditions and environment get better and better, but their talents will also stand on the shoulders of their brothers and sisters, with increasingly higher limits. Lu Changxing couldn't help but sigh. It seemed to him that as long as he continued to have children and improve, maybe in the future, he could have a whole family of advanced level spiritual roots, even heavenly spiritual roots. He then attempted to experience the cultivation speed of his 7th grade spiritual root. However, the silent and progressive enhancement of his spiritual root didn't feel like a significant change from before. An 8th grade spiritual root and a 7th grade spiritual root are both lower grade spiritual roots. There's not a noticeable difference in this progress. I imagine the upgrade from a lower grade to a middle grade spiritual root will bring a notable change. And I wonder how much help the advancement of my spiritual root from 8th grade to 7th grade will be in overcoming the bottleneck from the middle stage to the energy refinement late stage. Lu Changxing shook his head slightly, glancing at his qi ocean core that was like a stream of thick spiritual energy. He would meditate for 2 hours every day to cultivate, but there was still no movement in his cultivation level. He could only rely on gradual progress, waiting for a breakthrough opportunity. But if he really wanted to break through, Lu Changxing had also inquired. A high-grade breakthrough elixir, 1200 spirit stones. It could help someone from energy refinement middle stage to break through to the late stage. He could afford it if he saved for a year, but to Lu Changxing, it didn't seem necessary. As he didn't venture out, compete with others, or go dungeon crawling, having a sufficient cultivation level was good enough. He didn't need to rush. Taking yellow dragon elixirs to aid in cultivation was enough for him. Such breakthrough elixirs could impact his future foundation establishment. Guan Xian should be giving birth soon, wonder if this child will have a spiritual root. Lu Changsheng stretched his limbs, looking out at the clear azure sky, feeling a sense of anticipation. He had become quite philosophical about children born to wives without spiritual roots, but he couldn't help feeling a bit of anticipation when it came to those wives who did have spiritual roots. After 10 days, Lu Changxing discovered that 2 of his maids were pregnant. Chapter 135. Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. 7,749 children. The 4 maids purchased before, now only 1 remains who hasn't conceived. But Lu Changxing wasn't concerned, not in a rush to supplement. After all, there's only 1 big stick. Now that there were already so many ordinary maids, it was time to save some money and add a few high-quality ones. Besides, Lu Miaoyun was still at the 9 Dragons market. Out of respect for his wife, Lu Changxing would still restrain himself somewhat. At least wait until next month, when Lu Miaoyun and Chu Jinjin returned to Qingzhou Mountain, before strolling through the White Jade Tower again. 6 days later. On this day, Lu Changxing didn't go to the spiritual talisman shop and just sat at home. Because the child in Guanxin's belly was about to be born. Wah! With a cry, an extraordinary trembling emanated from Lu Changsheng's entire being. It was the vibration of the spiritual root. The child had the spiritual root, a surge that was added onto his own. Simultaneously, as he bathed in surprise, a system prompt sounded. Congratulations to the host for the birth of 5 offspring with spiritual roots. You have earned 1 lottery draw. This vibration and the system prompt filled Lu Changxing with indescribable joy and excitement. His state of mind was gradually improving. He didn't show too much excitement. A gentle smile appeared on his face, elegant and refreshing like a spring breeze. He and Lu Miaoyun entered the room. "Master, it's a precious little miss," the midwife said, beaming with smiles. "Good, thank you for your hard work," Lu Changxing said as he handed over a spirit stone. This was a midwife hired from the 9 Dragons market, the same one who had helped with the previous births. He felt that in the future, he would also need to hire a resident midwife at home. Although with his wives and concubines eating spirit rice and spirit food daily to nourish their bodies, there would likely be no issues with childbirth, these measures still had to be foolproof. Thank you so much, Master Lu," the midwife said as she accepted the spirit stone, her smile blooming like a chrysanthemum. Lu Changxing picked up the child. A very adorable infant. Knowing the child bore a spiritual root, Lu Changsheng's heart was filled with extra joy, finding the child cuter the more he looked. The sight also caused Guan Xian to flash a happy smile. She had felt a faint sense of disappointment knowing she gave birth to a daughter, fearing Lu Changxing might not like it as much. After all, in this world, the mindset of valuing males over females still existed. Seeing the smile on Lu Changsheng's face, she immediately felt much more at ease. After the birth of the child, Lu Changxing didn't rush to leave for the lottery draw. He stayed with Guan Xian and the other wives and concubines, chatting and talking. It wasn't until the afternoon that he mentioned going to check on the shop. After arriving at the spiritual talisman shop, Lu Changxing headed straight to the 3rd floor, then began the part he was most looking forward to. "System, I want to draw the lottery." Lu Changxing thought silently. Instantly, the pale red system lottery wheel appeared. "I wonder what I will draw this time. If not a cultivation technique, another magical treasure would also be nice," Lu Changxing thought to himself as he looked at the lottery wheel, filled with anticipation. After all, the black dragon magical bead had been of great assistance to him. If he could refine a magical treasure for each of his limbs, he reckoned his cultivation would soar. Lu Changxing didn't think too much, he simply commanded, "Start the draw." Immediately, golden lights on the wheel began to spin. Under Lu Changsheng's expectant gaze, the golden light slowly settled on the treasures section of the lottery wheel. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining an extraordinary treasure, Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. The reward has been issued to the system space. The host can check it at any time. A dark, black-colored scroll with bizarre patterns emerged along with the system prompt. Extraordinary treasure, Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates? Lu Changsheng was somewhat surprised to see the reward he had drawn. Energy refining cultivators use magic artifacts. Foundation building great cultivators use spiritual artifacts. Nascent soul immortals wield magical treasures. But extraordinary treasures belong to a special category outside this system. Their biggest difference is that everyone can refine and use them without such high requirements for cultivation level. Some powerful extraordinary treasures, even those at the energy refining or foundation establishment cultivation levels, may harm a nascent soul immortal. Lu Changxing immediately turned to look at the system space. To see what effects this Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates held. Extraordinary Treasure, Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates, Grade, 3rd rank, Description, crafted by the Ancient Witch clan using the evil aura between heaven and earth. One simply needs to visualize the individual while looking at the manuscript to cast a curse across space, entangling the victim's flesh, spirit, and soul with the malevolent curse for 49 days, leading to the gradual decay of the flesh and the annihilation of the soul, ending in death. The description of the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates emerged. Is this a cursing type of treasure? Lu Changxing, upon reading the introduction, immediately grasped the effects of the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. This piece of the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates looked very formidable. But Lu Changxing was aware that being 3rd rank, it could at most curse those at the core formation stage. Furthermore, such extraordinary treasures would certainly have limitations and side effects. He called forth the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. Instantly, a thick, jet-black manuscript that looked like a book but couldn't be turned appeared before Lu Changxing. There were no words on the manuscript, only faint black patterns. These patterns looked like threads of malevolent energy slowly flowing, giving off an eerie impression. And as he extracted this Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates, a stream of information also entered Lu Changsheng's mind. A detailed description of this extraordinary treasure. Indeed, just as he had guessed, this Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates, while appearing formidable, was ultimately just a 3rd-rank extraordinary treasure with limited effects. First, this Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates was a one-time use treasure. Once used, it would be gone. Next, it could only kill nascent soul immortals at most. And it came with side effects. Chapter 136, Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates. 7,749 children. To curse others, one must also pay a price. It costs years of one's life. And with the decline of vital energy and blood, one must cultivate a calm mind for recuperation to recover. To curse an energy refinement cultivator, one loses 1 to 3 years of life. To curse a foundation building cultivator, 10 to 30 years of life are forfeited. To curse a core formation cultivator, over 100 years are lost. As for a nascent soul true lord, although it's impossible to curse them to death, if one wishes, they can still be inflicted with minor annoyances, letting the malevolent chi plague them, causing their flesh to wither and their spirits to become feeble. As for the cost, it depends on one's own cultivation level, strength, and lifespan. If one does not possess the power of the nascent soul stage, taking such actions would essentially lead to the decay of the physical body, the extinction of the soul, and, consequently, death. The Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates, this artifact, how should I put it? Lu Changsheng looked at the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates in front of him, which slightly resembled a memorial portrait frame, smacked his lips, and for a moment, did not know how to describe it. Its power was unquestionable. One only needs to silently ponder over someone to cast a curse from afar, ignoring distance. It wasn't like some other curse methods he had seen or heard about in books, which required collecting the target's hair, blood, or items they had used, among other things. In other words, being in the chi refinement realm, having met a foundation-building cultivator, he could just silently focus on the Book of Malevolent Curses and Fates, sacrifice years of his own lifespan, and then he would be able to curse them to death. If he were reckless enough not to care about his life, although he might not necessarily be able to curse a nascent soul immortal to death, he could still cause them to be plagued by malevolent curses, thus leading to their flesh decaying, their spirits languishing, their strength greatly diminishing, and their cultivations ceasing to advance. This kind of action, no matter where it's applied, is incredibly shocking. But in Lu Changsheng's eyes, the cost was simply too great, hardly worth it. After all, an energy refinement cultivator's lifespan is barely over 100 years. If he were to curse a foundation-building great cultivator, he would have to sacrifice at least 20 to 30 years of life. Moreover, it's not just about losing years of life, vital energy would also decline, which would affect one's strength. Cultivation aside, it's estimated that even childbearing would be impacted. However, this treasure does not require a specific owner to claim it. It doesn't restrict who can use it. If I'm willing, I could completely allow someone else to use it, letting them sacrifice their lifespan to help me curse others. But who would be willing to bear such risks and be trustworthy? It's too dangerous. Therefore, I shall keep this treasure as a last resort, not to be used unless absolutely necessary. Lu Changsheng looked at the book of malevolent curses and fates in his hand, shook his head slightly, and put it away in his storage bag. He decided that if any unworthy Qi refinement realm cultivator dared to trouble him and pushed him too far, he would carve their portrait into this book of malevolent curses and fates. As for core formation immortals, it wasn't worth it as it would be akin to mutual destruction. After finishing the draw, Lu Changsheng suddenly felt a sense of tastelessness. He then sat cross-legged and began to meditate on cultivation, to see how much of a boost his daughter's 8th grade spiritual root would provide to his cultivation. After a long while, through experience, Lu Changsheng felt that the boost was less than 10%. He estimated that his daughter's spiritual root was at most an 8th grade spiritual root. However, Lu Changsheng was quite satisfied with this. At this stage, just having a spiritual root was sufficient. What need was there for anything more? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Lu Changsheng believed that as long as he worked hard, his talents would eventually reach unprecedented heights. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days passed. That day, the second elder came to visit Lu Changsheng's home again. After casually chatting, he mentioned that within half a month, he would be returning to Qingzhou Mountain. He asked Lu Changsheng and Lu Miaoyun, along with others, if they wanted to go back with him. To this, Lu Changsheng naturally expressed his desire to return. Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin also expressed their wishes to return to Qingzhou Mountain for prenatal care and to call for other sisters to join them. Lu Changsheng had originally planned to send Guan Xian to Qingzhou Mountain as well, to rest and to look after the children. But due to the limited seats in the flying boat, only 3, he had to abandon the idea. Lu Changsheng also inquired with the second elder if it would be okay for infants to ride on the flying boat. He was planning to send his 3 children back to Qingzhou Mountain to be raised. The second elder said there were no significant issues, but it would be best if Lu Changsheng bought several pieces of warm sun jade. This warm sun jade is a type of spirit jade that can isolate cold and nurture the body. With it, infants on the flying boat would not catch a cold and could sleep more peacefully. After the second elder finished discussing the matters and chatted for a while, he left cheerfully. His visit was naturally not just about notifying Lu Changsheng about the return trip to Qingzhou Mountain. Was such a trivial matter worth the trouble for the eminent second elder of the Lu family to come personally? He was mainly coming over to see if, after being counseled by the 4th elder, Lu Changsheng had still been recklessly taking concubines and buying maids and indulging in the company of women in the past 6 months. From his observations, he was quite satisfied with Lu Changsheng's behavior. The children were still being born, but it was obviously a lot better than before. Lu Miaoyun also told him that in the past 6 months, Lu Changsheng had only taken 1 concubine and bought 1 maid, which was very reassuring to him. He felt that the effects of the advice he had the 4th elder give were quite good. Preparing to return in half a month, the next day, Lu Changsheng went out with Lu Miaoyun, Chu Zhenjin, and the other ladies, to stroll the streets. He planned to buy some gifts to take back. During this process, Lu Changsheng found the warm sun jade that second elder mentioned to be very cheap. It cost only 2 spirit stones apiece. He directly purchased 35 pieces. After all, how could a father favor some over others? Even if he was relatively more fond of certain children. But for small things like this, if possible, he still tried to treat everyone equally. So now, with 35 children, he simply bought 35 pieces, one for each child. After that, Lu Changsheng strolled through the marketplace, inquiring about the prices of the ever-youth elixirs. His wives had been with him for many years, bearing him so many children. Naturally, he had to give them something valuable. The best among these was, of course, the ever-youth elixir. It had the effect of everlasting youth. But the ever-youth elixir was a second-rank elixir, and the price was very high. First-rank elixir medicines for youth preservation included the ever-youth elixir and beautifying elixir. The ever-youth elixir could preserve one's appearance, but after about a decade or so, it would still gradually change. The price was 100 spirit stones. The beautifying elixir had the effect of nourishing yin and beautifying the complexion. It was beneficial in abundance. Taking one every 3 years would also achieve the effect of the ever-youth elixir. The price was 20 spirit stones per pill. Lu Changsheng thought for a moment and directly purchased 16 beautifying elixirs. One for each of his current wives. A total of 320 spirit stones. The shopkeeper gave him a discount of 20 spirit stones, and in the end, he spent 300 spirit stones. It was only at times like these that Lu Changsheng felt how difficult it was to support so many wives and children. 10 days later, Lu Changsheng, Lu Miaoyun, and Chu Zhenjin, each holding a baby, went to live in the large courtyard in the eastern district, preparing to return to Qingzhou Mountain with second elder. The 3 Lu family disciples who accompanied them were all cousins of Lu Miaoyun. 2 of them had also been along on the last trip. They saw that before they came, Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin were fine. But when they were returning, not only did their bellies slightly protrude, but they were also each holding a baby with Lu Changsheng. This left them somewhat confused and astonished. After that, they asked Lu Changsheng what the situation was, and where the children came from. In response to these questions, Lu Changsheng didn't hide anything. He simply said that he had taken a few concubines here and bought some maids. These 3 children had just been born recently, and he planned to take them back to Qingzhou Mountain to raise them. Hearing this, the 3 of them exchanged looks with each other. As Lu family disciples, they naturally knew of Lu Changsheng's reputation at Qingzhou Mountain. He was good with women and prodigious in fathering children. Knowing was one thing, but they hadn't expected Lu Changsheng to restlessly procreate everywhere he went. Especially one of Lu Miaoyun's cousins, who asked Lu Changsheng how many children he had by now. Lu Changsheng said there were 35 born, with another 14 on the way, not only leaving the 3 of them bewildered but also stunned. Second elder, who was steering the flying boat, couldn't help his mouth twitching, his face a mixture of bemusement and shock. Back in the day, when the Lu family sought a son-in-law, the requirement was to have 50 children in 20 years. Now, in just over 6 years, Lu Changsheng already had 49 children. P.S. Because I plan to try for a 10,000 words day, the update times may be erratic, and I likely won't be able to update on time at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Please forgive me. Chapter 137, 7th Level of Qi Refinement, Lottery. _ 2 days later. A flying boat descended outside Qingzhou Mountain. Lu Changsheng and his family of 6, alongside the second elder and a few others, disembarked from the flying boat and entered Qingzhou Mountain. Along the way, people noticed Lu Changsheng carrying a child, Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjin with slightly bulging bellies also holding infants, which sparked curiosity and some discussion among the onlookers. Why are Lu Changsheng and Sister Miaoyun still carrying a baby each when they return? They must be their own children. I remember they didn't take any babies with them when they left. Wasn't Lu Changsheng supposed to be managing the store in the marketplace? Could it be that he fathered the children while away? Then he's really good at this, isn't he? Just popping out kids wherever he goes? Don't you know? Lu Changsheng really loves having children. Just look at Sister Miaoyun and that Chu Zhenjin, they're pregnant again. Gosh, when it comes to having kids, I only respect Lu Changsheng. If the family head had recruited more of these immortal seedlings like Lu Changsheng to begin with, who knows how much vitality they could have brought to our Lu family. Many of the Lu family disciples talked among themselves. Damn, wasn't Lu Changsheng obliged to have 50 children? Why is he going to such lengths? You can tell he genuinely loves having kids from the bottom of his heart. I'm still short of 38 children. Think if I ask Lu Changsheng to help me have them, would he agree? A few of the immortal seedlings muttered to themselves upon witnessing this scene. Lu Changsheng was unaware of others' curiosity and commentary, but even if he knew, it wouldn't matter to him. After all, it's not like they're saying anything bad. He genuinely loves having children. Once back at home, Lu Changsheng settled the 3 infants. He went to see his 33rd and 34th children. Even though all the babies looked more or less the same, and having so many children might seem overwhelming. But as a father, upon returning home, he had to see his children. Afterward, Lu Changsheng handed out elixir medicines and some gifts he had purchased to his wives and concubines. Thank you, husband. This item is too precious. You're being too generous, my husband. Thank you, Sister Miaoyun. The wives and concubines were overjoyed and touched upon seeing these gifts and hearing about the effects of the elixir medicines. They had not expected Lu Changsheng to give them such precious elixir medicines. For them, these were truly divine pills. Several wives and concubines, moved by the gesture, even burst into tears. These first wives and concubines, all from the Lu family's secular world, married Lu Changsheng back then simply for the rewards offered by the Lu family, with the idea of contributing to the clan. At most, there was the notion of gaining status through their children, hoping to give birth to children with spiritual roots. They had no real expectations for Lu Changsheng as a husband. Never could they have imagined that Lu Changsheng would go from a mere breeding son-in-law to the point where he is now. Their status, along with Lu Changsheng, rose with the tide. They were living a blissful life beyond their wildest dreams. Now that Lu Changsheng had reached the status, they were starting to feel inferior, aware that they were no longer worthy of being his wives and concubines. Still, Lu Changsheng's treatment of them remained unchanged. The bestowing of such precious gifts made them feel beyond moved and filled with joy, leading to tears. They felt that choosing to marry Lu Changsheng was the most correct decision in their lives. Why are you crying now? Lu Changsheng hadn't expected that a simple gift would move them to tears and immediately began to console them. Husband, you've simply been too good to your concubine, making me overwhelmed and so happy, Lu Yuzhu said, her face filled with emotion. You are my wives and concubines. If I'm not good to you, to whom should I be? This is just the beginning. In the future, our home will become better and better, and life for you and the children will continue to improve. Lu Changsheng wiped her tears away and spoke gently. While these wives and concubines might not epitomize the proverbial wives of poor circumstances, Lu Changsheng was not the type to forget old faces upon meeting new ones. As he always said, let pragmatism be pragmatism. Since they have become his wives and the mothers of his children, he, Lu Changsheng, would shoulder the responsibilities he ought to. His words moved the other wives and concubines deeply. Lu Miaoyun and Chu Zhenjun were also greatly touched by this. After all, this world, at its core, belonged to a feudal society dominated by the law of the jungle. Although Lu Changsheng had numerous wives and concubines, his behavior was respectable, marking him as one of the few good men who respected women. After comforting his wives, Lu Changsheng had the children capable of walking line up to receive their gifts. Thank you, Daddy. Mua, thank you, Daddy. The children were clearly delighted at receiving gifts, things to eat and play with. As for the very young ones who couldn't walk or speak and were still in their swaddles, Lu Changsheng simply turned the warm sun jade into pendants and hung them around their necks. After these tasks were completed, seeing the joyous and delighted faces of his wives and children, Lu Changsheng also wore a broad smile, feeling pleased and exceptionally fulfilled. Such is life, what more could one ask for? As he was overwhelmed by these strong emotions, Lu Changsheng suddenly felt a tremor from his dantian. The bottleneck of his 6th-level energy refinement cultivation level seemed to loosen at this moment. Lu Changxing was immediately overjoyed. He realized the opportunity to break through from the energy refinement middle stage to the late stage had arrived. He excused himself from his wives and quickly made his way to his private cultivation chamber to break through to the energy refinement late stage. Lu Changxing took out a bottle of energy refining powder from the storage bag and poured it into his mouth. Then, clutching 2 spirit stones, he closed his eyes and focused, began circulating the returning origin technique, and aimed to break through to the 7th-level energy refinement. The energy refining powder in his belly made the spiritual energy in his dantian, which was like a stream, seem to boil at this moment, emanating a faint spiritual pressure around his body. Chapter 138, 7th Level of Qi Refinement, Lottery. Lu Changxing used the returning origin technique to guide the flow of spiritual energy through his dantian and meridians, creating a complete operational circuit that made his aura surge, increasingly exerting a greater spiritual pressure. He didn't know how much time had passed. Boom! Lu Changxing's body shuddered intensely, and a wave of invisible dust spread out around him. At that moment, he seemed almost ethereal, as if he were about to ascend, with his entire being feeling lighter and more translucent. The 7th-level energy refinement, achieved. He suppressed the excitement and joy in his heart, slowly calming the agitated spiritual power in his meridians. After a long while, his aura stabilized. The 7th level of Qi refinement, I've finally stepped into the late stages of Qi refinement. Lu Changxing opened his eyes, which sparkled bright, filled with joy as he spoke. The 7th level of Qi refinement signified his entry into the late phase of the Qi refinement realm. This level of cultivation, even within the entire Lu family, was as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Only Lu Yuanding from his generation and the elders from the older generation of the high-ranking Lu family members possessed such cultivation strength. Among his peers and those of his age, Lu Changxing knew only of Lu Miaoge. He estimated that there were probably just a few other Lu family disciples. The path of cultivation is myriad. It isn't simply about bitter practice. Different people have different paths. Some dedicate themselves to secluded cultivation, others go out to experience and fight, breaking through in life and death situations. There are also those who find their breakthrough opportunities amidst the chaos of the mortal world, observing the phenomena of life. And today I did something similar. In the end, the bottleneck of cultivation boils down to a clear understanding and reaching a new spiritual realm of self. In this moment, Lu Changxing also came to a realization. Ordinarily, when reading books, he encountered numerous interpretations of the ways of cultivation. But these things, upon reading or listening, seemed mystical and elusive. However, just now, seeing the happy faces of his wives and children, he too experienced an epiphany, a sense of fulfillment, which loosened the bottleneck at the 6th level of energy refinement. Cultivation breakthrough opportunities and bottlenecks, while seeming illusory, indeed, exist in this world. Just like the common phenomena in the cultivation world, such as heart-demon oaths, the law of cause and effect, and the concept of destiny. Lu Changxing didn't dwell on it any longer and closed his eyes again, quietly experiencing the changes following the breakthrough. The spiritual power flowing quietly through his meridians was not only much stronger but also became more lustrous. In the Qi Ocean core area, what was once wisps and streams like a creek of spiritual energy had formed into a small lake. This was the Qi Lake, a symbol of the late stages of Qi refinement, the condensation of the spiritual energy into a lake. When one's cultivation reaches the pinnacle of the Qi refinement realm, and the Qi Lake becomes a vast sea, lifting the Tao foundation, one can completely shed the mortal body and establish the Tao foundation to become a foundation-building great cultivator. The 7th level of Qi refinement not only makes the spiritual energy several times more powerful, my mental spirit has also greatly improved. Lu Changxing felt not only an abundance of energy and lightness in his body but also his consciousness and thoughts seemed much clearer. This was the state of one's mental spirit. Breaking through from the Qi refinement realm to the foundation establishment stage has 3 major obstacles. The last of these barriers is the transformation of the mental spirit, giving birth to divine sense, which allows for the external projection of one's spirit. This is of great advantage when it comes to cultivation, combat, and other such activities. With my current level of strength, I can also try drawing second-rank talismans. Lu Changsheng thought to himself. While at the 6th level of Qi refinement, as long as the materials for talisman making were available, he could create a supreme talisman. Now that he had broken through the bottleneck and became a 7th level energy refinement cultivator, both his mental spirit and spiritual power had greatly increased, giving him the confidence and at least a 70 to 80% chance of success in drawing a second-rank talisman. But the materials for second-rank talismans are not only expensive, they aren't as readily available as the first-grade talisman paper and spiritual ink, and are quite rare. Moreover, if I want to draw second-rank talismans, my current middle-grade magic artifact talisman brush obviously won't do. I would need at least a first-grade supreme magic artifact talisman brush. Lu Changsheng shook his head. He was aware that he was missing the most crucial thing to draw second-rank talismans: money. Without giving it much thought, he stood up, flung his sleeves, and with a gentle smile on his face, said, "Not bad, breaking through to the 7th level of Qi refinement in less than 7 years. All these years of relentless effort haven't been in vain." Pleased with himself, Lu Changsheng nodded and was about to leave the practice room. However, just as he was about to open the door, Lu Changsheng paused. He double-checked to make sure that the aura of his spiritual power was completely concealed by the magic artifact on his body and the jade pendant gifted by the colored skirt woman. After all, to the outside world, he was still at the 4th level of Qi refinement. Now that he had made a breakthrough, he could at most reveal being at the 5th level of Qi refinement. Showcasing the 7th level would be impossible to explain. Once sure there were no issues, Lu Changsheng finally opened the door and stepped out of the practice room. Outside the small courtyard, his wives were all waiting for him. Earlier, when Lu Changsheng mentioned he felt an epiphany coming and was about to break through, they all came to wait. They hoped to be the first to see their husband after the breakthrough and to share the joy together. Husband! 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 All of the women's gazes converged on Lu Changsheng, calling out in unison. Seeing the scene before him, where the women's eyes were filled with love, admiration, and concern, Lu Changsheng chuckled and said, "Heh, it's only a small step forward in cultivation." Lu Changsheng, with his handsome features, spoke with an air of composure and ease. "Congratulations to my husband for breaking through to the 5th level of Qi refinement." Seeing Lu Changsheng's demeanor and posture, Lu Miaoyun immediately showed a face full of joy and was the first to congratulate Lu Changsheng. "Congratulations to my husband for the breakthrough. Congratulations to my husband for advancing further on the path of immortality. Congratulations, Dad. Congratulations, Daddy. You're amazing." The rest of his wives followed Lu Miaoyun's lead, bowing and instructing their children to offer their congratulations to Lu Changsheng. Seeing this, Lu Changsheng couldn't help but laugh heartily and said, "Good, good, good. Today, having broken through to the 5th level of Qi refinement, we must celebrate properly." Chapter 139. Qi Refinement Level 7, Lottery. That night, the entire Qingzhou mountain was engulfed in darkness and silence. Only in the Qingzhou Valley were the lights in Lu Changsheng's home bright, as he celebrated his breakthrough with his wives and concubines. The next day, Lu Changsheng and Lu Miaoyun left the house to pay a visit to the 4th elder. After all, since he was back, it was only right to pay respects to the esteemed old lady. Just as they arrived at the 4th elder's residence, they happened to run into the 2nd elder leaving. "Second grandpa, 2nd elder," Lu Changsheng greeted with a beaming smile and a bow. In his heart, he couldn't help but wonder, could this 2nd elder be a gossip? The very moment he returned to Qingzhou Mountain, he had to come and speak with the 4th elder about what he was up to in the 9 Dragons Market. Lucky for him, Lu Changsheng walked the straight path and had nothing to fear from others talking behind his back. Changxing, you've come, the fourth elder said with a loving smile as she saw Lu Changxing and Lu Miaoyan arrive. After a brief chat, she began to assess Lu Changxing's talisman-making skills. In terms of talisman making, Lu Changxing was about the same as his last visit. He had already mastered the frost talisman, and then there was another middle-grade talisman, barely a beginner in that area. Given his previous performance and the explanation of his spiritual body, the fourth elder was much more accepting of Lu Changxing's progress. Indeed, his progress over the past 6 months was nearly the same as in the preceding 4 months. She couldn't help but think, did Lu Changxing not improve as much this time because he had been physically together with his wife less over these past 6 months? But as his elder, it was not proper to inquire about such matters. It's not as if she could say, Changxing, if you can handle it physically, more intimacy won't hurt, and he'll explain things to Yuner for you. Not bad, not bad. Changxing, at this rate, I'm afraid it may only take another year for you to become a superior grade talisman master, the fourth elder said with a joyous and gratified expression. I will certainly work hard, Lu Changxing replied. He had indeed planned to do so, preparing to demonstrate the skills of a superior grade talisman master in about a year, almost a full year ahead of his original schedule. After all, he had fabricated a spiritual body, so a sped-up rate of progress was somewhat justifiable. Changxing, you must also diligently pursue your cultivation and not become complacent. Although the 4th level of energy refinement is sufficient to draw a superior grade talisman, it's a bit strenuous, so it would be best if you could break through to the 5th level as soon as possible. The 4th elder glanced at Lu Changxing's cultivation level and spiritual power. However, she found that his spiritual power was so well concealed that she could not ascertain it at a glance. She did not bother to look further, believing that some treasure must be hiding his spiritual aura. After all, it was quite normal to conceal one's energies while traveling outside. Granny, Changxing just made a breakthrough to the 5th level of energy refinement yesterday, said Lu Changxing, who knew that under the cover of the magic artifact and the jade pendant of the lady in the colorful skirt, the 4th elder had not seen his true cultivation level, and he spoke without a change in his expression. The breakthrough from yesterday was also nothing to hide. There was nothing worth concealing. Though having a 9th grade spiritual root and making a breakthrough from the 4th to the 5th level of energy refinement in a year and 8 months was somewhat exaggerated, it could still be barely explained. What? You've broken through to the 5th level of energy refinement? The 4th elder exclaimed in surprise. Indeed, Lu Changxing was not just a possessor of a 9th grade spiritual root, he had also devoted many hours and energy to talisman making, managing the store, as well as intimate affairs. Therefore, under these circumstances, this rapid advancement to the 5th level of energy refinement was truly astonishing. Yes, Granny. Changxing knows his talents are lacking, so I have never slacked in my cultivation. Usually, I also drew some talismans to sell to a former good friend, and put some up for sale at the spiritual talisman shop, and with the spirit stones earned, I bought elixir medicines to aid in cultivation. Lu Changxing spoke up, relating to Hong Yi the affair of selling talismans at the spiritual talisman shop. After all, he had never intended to hide these matters from the Lu family and wasn't afraid of them finding out. Good, knowing that you haven't neglected your cultivation, Grandma is reassured. These matters are trivial, as long as you are clear on them, that's fine. If you have any problems with your cultivation, you can always ask Grandma, and if you need any help, feel free to mention it. The 4th elder said with a face full of gratification. In her heart, she vaguely guessed that Lu Changxing's spiritual body might also contribute to speeding up his cultivation. However, the speed was not too astonishing, and she didn't inquire further. After all, in the cultivation world, everyone has their secrets. There's no need to be overly curious and insist on asking everything. She immediately began instructing Lu Changxing in the art of talisman making. Teaching Lu Changxing to make talismans was also a pleasure for her. After all, mentoring a disciple was very fulfilling and rewarding. Especially thinking about the future, nurturing a 2nd grade talisman master made her love Lu Changxing even more. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Lu Changxing returned to the Nine Dragons market with the second elder. Originally, he planned to bring Lu Lanshu or the sisters Lu Qing'er and Lu Zier to the Nine Dragons market. However, the women expressed that the spirit root testing ceremony was just 3 months away and wanted to stay at home with the children. Hearing this, Lu Changxing did not insist. He immediately took his other 2 wives to the Nine Dragons market. "Brother Lu, just how many wives and concubines do you have?" After arriving at the Nine Dragons market, Yu Maoqing, seeing Lu Changxing with 2 women he had never seen before, couldn't help asking. "Not many, just 5 wives, 9 concubines, 2 favored beauties, and 15 maids." Lu Changxing said, "Am I really such a damned cheap bastard?" Yu Maoqing, hearing this response, wondered why he had even asked. He slapped his own mouth twice. "Brother Yu, don't be like this, don't." "Brother Yu." Lu Changxing hurriedly held him back. When he got back home, Lu Changxing shook his head. He felt that if he wanted to remain friends with Yu Maoqing, he needed to talk less about these topics. After that, he counted the spirit stones he had on him. A total of 205 spirit stones. Sigh, broke. Lu Changxing let out a deep sigh. His monthly expenses were substantial. Plus, he had recently purchased gifts for his wives and children, which meant he had spent far too much and saved hardly any money. Looks like I can only go to the White Jade Tower later. As for the matter of the second-grade talismans, that will also have to be put on hold for now. Lu Changxing, looking at the meager amount of spirit stones, decided to temporarily forego visiting the White Jade Tower and crafting second-grade talismans. Before long, half a month had passed. The last of the 4 maids Lu Changxing had purchased ended up pregnant. This brought the total number of Lu Changxing's children to 50. The Lu family is still quite decent, allowing 20 years just to have 50 children. Lu Changxing couldn't help but sigh when he thought about completing the Lu family's initial request in just over 6 years. Too bad he was no longer the Lu family's son-in-law. Otherwise, with his efficiency, Patriarch Lu Yuanding would certainly have lauded him with great praise before everyone. Another month and more had passed. Lu Changxing's 36th, 37th, 38th, and 39th children were born. I wonder if there's any reward for the 40th? Lu Changxing couldn't help but look forward to the birth of the next baby, which was due soon. 9 days later, when the 40th child was born, a system notification rang out. "Congratulations, host. For the number of your progeny reaching 40, you have earned 1 chance to draw a prize." Chapter 140, Screwing on the Assembly Line. Understood? Really? Upon hearing the system notification, Lu Changxing's heart immediately leapt with joy. In his boring and monotonous daily life, only giving birth and the system lottery could stir some ripples in his heart. Does this mean that every time I have 10 children, the system will give me a share of child money? Lu Changxing couldn't help but think to himself, "System, I want to draw the lottery." He did not speculate too much. After all, too much speculation leads to expectations. And with expectations come disappointments. As he watched the lottery wheel appear before his eyes, Lu Changxing's mental spirit stirred. "Start the lottery draw." Immediately, the lottery wheel began to shimmer with golden light. Under Lu Changxing's gaze, the golden light finally stopped on skills. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining second-rank puppet skills. The reward has been delivered to the system space. The host can check it at any time. A light orb shaped like a puppet emerged from the big wheel alongside the sound of the system. Second-rank puppet skills? Lu Changxing raised an eyebrow upon seeing the skills he obtained from the lottery draw. Puppetry within the myriad arts of cultivation was considered a somewhat niche skill. Although it was not as prominent as formation, alchemy, artifact refining, or talisman making. Nevertheless, it was still considered a pretty decent craft. Once mastered, one would not want for anything in life. Or to say, among the myriad arts of cultivation, mastering any one art to its peak ensured a comfortable life. Even the least regarded like spirit plant cultivation, butchery, medicinal cuisine, breeding, and so on, were decent if one was skilled. Diligently working in these arts would make life progressively sweeter. Lu Changsheng's mental spirit stirred as he looked towards the light orb in the system space. Second-rank puppet skills. Upon use, immediately comprehend second-tier top-level puppet skills and the corresponding puppet compendium. Indeed, just like the talisman making I received before, it directly provides second-tier top-level puppet skills, meaning the highest I can craft are puppets comparable to the peak of foundation establishment. With these puppet skills, I can not only deploy Talisman C tactics but also perform Puppet C technique in the future. If I have a few second-rank puppets with me, that will ensure my safety in the future. Lu Changxing nodded slightly as he looked at the description, quite satisfied. He really liked this craft, it suited him well. Or to say, Lu Changxing found all the myriad arts of cultivation appealing. After all, a man can never have too many skills. Knowing a few more crafts couldn't hurt. Even if he couldn't use them immediately, later on, when establishing a family, he could teach them to his children or others. Lu Changxing had already thought it through. If he were to establish a cultivation family, it would be just like now. Avoiding conflict and strife, making connections, and living harmoniously and profitably. The entire family would rely on mastering various crafts, earning money, and cultivating steadily. Without hesitation, Lu Changxing used the second-rank puppet skills from the system space. In an instant, a wealth of knowledge entered his mind out of thin air. Puppet Primer, Basic Puppet Compendium, First-Grade Puppet Compendium, Second-Rank Puppet Compendium, Crafting Puppets by Hand, How Puppets Are Made, My Affairs with Puppets. After a while, Lu Changsheng's mind was filled with a flood of knowledge about puppets. Identifying materials for making puppets, how to use the skeletons of demon beasts and ferocious beasts to create puppets, puppet formation engraving, spirit mechanisms, and control, etc. Phew. Worthy of the system, even though I've experienced it once before, this sensation still feels incredibly profound. Lu Changxing breathed out deeply and looked at his own hands. Not only was his mind filled with loads of knowledge about puppets, but his hands also felt like they had been crafting, assembling, polishing, and refining puppets for decades. If he had a pile of materials now, he could perform live puppet crafting with his bare hands. However, this puppet skill doesn't seem as good as I thought it would be. After absorbing the second-rank puppet skills, Lu Changxing slightly frowned. Based on his new understanding of puppet crafting, he realized there were several significant issues with making puppets. It took time. It cost money. Even with second-rank puppet skills and being a second-tier top-level puppet master, working with the right materials, it would still take 2 or 3 days, maybe even longer, to craft an ordinary first-grade low-quality puppet. For a first-grade middle-grade puppet, at least 7 or 8 days, possibly up to a fortnight. And as for first-grade high-quality puppets, even longer, usually starting from a fortnight. With his regular cultivation, talisman making, spending time with his wives and concubines, and child creation, Lu Changxing clearly knew he did not have enough time or energy to mass-produce puppets. Moreover, the material costs for creating puppets were high. Lu Changxing made a rough estimate. Just the material costs for an ordinary first-grade low-quality puppet would be around 20 or 30 spirit stones. Although he wasn't sure of the exact price of a low-grade puppet, he vaguely knew that the price of one would not exceed 100 spirit stones. That meant that crafting a puppet, busying himself for 3 or 4 days, would only yield 3 or 4 times the profit. This profitability paled in comparison to talisman making. It was downright embarrassing. No wonder there exists a hierarchy among craftsmen. Formation, alchemy, artifact refining, and talisman making, the mainstream arts, look down on other crafts. Puppetry might be decent within the myriad arts of cultivation, but compared to the relatively effortless and highly profitable talisman making, the difference is immediately apparent. Furthermore, among the mainstream 4 arts of cultivation, talisman making is ranked at the bottom. Lu Changxing shook his head, reflecting. Suddenly, he felt that these second-rank puppet skills were somewhat superfluous to his current situation. Firstly, this skill was not a means to make money. Chapter 141. Screwing on the Assembly Line. Earning money from making puppets could never be as easy or quick as earning money from talisman making. Then, the time and material costs of the production are too high. It made him immediately abandon the strategy of the puppet sea battle he had imagined. Even for a first-grade inferior puppet, he couldn't afford many. As for making second-rank puppets, that was even more out of the question. It's not that he couldn't create them, he simply didn't have the money. Lu Changxing wasn't very clear on the material costs for a second-rank puppet, but his preliminary estimate was at least several thousand spirit stones. This is too hard. Lu Changxing sighed deeply. It felt like everywhere on the path of cultivation required money. He now needed money to save the unfortunate female cultivators at White Jade Tower. He also needed money to buy a first-grade premium talisman brush, to purchase second-rank talisman materials, and to draw second-rank talismans. Barely having enough money as it was, and in great need of it, where would he find the funds to buy materials to make second-rank puppets? Alas, one person can only do so much. If you try to do everything yourself, it's just too hard. There's simply not enough time and energy, no wonder many artisans choose to join a power. Lu Changxing shook his head in contemplation. He also understood why many would choose to join a power. Because by joining a power, there were many conveniences. Just like when he was with the Lu family, he also benefited from the family. But the problem was his second-rank talismans and the second-rank puppets he currently had couldn't be shown. He couldn't quickly convert them into resources. And with his current lack of strength, he didn't dare reveal his second-rank skills. Otherwise, what would he do if he ended up as a tool person drawing talismans for 8 hours a day? Wait a second, puppet making, though difficult, is mainly complex. Not only do you need to refine materials, create parts, craft components, and assemble them, but you also have to engrave spiritual pattern formations onto the puppets, and so on. One person trying to master all of this is of course very hard, but these steps can be divided up and done by different people. Lu Changxing assimilated the puppet knowledge in his mind. All of a sudden, he felt producing puppets was a bit like the assembly line factory where he had screwed in bolts in his previous life, and an idea occurred to him. If a person only had to master one thing, wouldn't that be much simpler? I could find a group of somewhat talented apprentices and teach them different parts of puppet making, parts, components, and assembly to different people. Then, I could teach the most central spiritual pattern formation engraving to a trustworthy person. Wouldn't that achieve an assembly line for puppets? As long as the puppets are industrialized on an assembly line, and the quantity goes up, wouldn't making money become simpler? After all, no matter how profitable talisman making is, it's still just one person. How can that compare to the products of an assembly line? Lu Changxing thought to himself. The more he thought about it, the more feasible this idea seemed to Lu Changxing. Talisman making had to be done by himself. But with his skills in second-rank puppet making, as a master second-rank puppet maker, he found that puppet making could absolutely be divided up among multiple workers. The difficulty of this art lay in its complexity. You had to create and refine the numerous parts and components of a puppet, assemble them, then engrave the spiritual pattern formations upon the puppet. One even needed to understand mechanical techniques, human biomechanics, physics, mechanical construction, and a whole bunch of other things. But if these parts were divided up and industrialized, allowing different people to work on them, the barriers suddenly lowered. There was a definite hope of creating an assembly line industry. If I can think of this, surely others could too, right? Forget it for now, this is a bit too far-fetched for me. I'll wait until I'm stronger and consider it then. Lu Changxing shook his head, pushing down the idea that had just come to him. To build a puppet-making industry, he would still need a certain level of strength before he could start to implement it. Currently, with no money and no strength, it's better to stick to making talismans to earn money, to survive and grow. Looking at the sky outside, which was almost evening, Lu Changxing walked out of the spiritual talisman shop. He prepared himself to purchase some materials for making puppets. Despite the high costs, since he had the skills, he had to put them to use and create a couple for fun. If all else failed, they could later serve as toys for his children. Lu Changxing didn't go to the loose cultivator market to buy materials. This round trip would take too long, and by the time he finished, it would be dark. An hour later, Lu Changxing arrived at the Qingyun Commerce Guild. This was a shop opened by the Qingyun sect itself, with 7 floors and was extremely luxurious. Inside, elixir medicines, magic artifacts, cultivation techniques, heavenly and earthly treasures, and more were sold, all with guarantees. Lu Changxing went to the Qingyun Commerce Guild and purchased materials for making a first-grade inferior puppet and a first-grade middle-grade puppet. He also casually bought some spiritual materials needed for practicing the 100 Refinements treasure body technique. Even though he was making rapid progress with the Black Dragon magical bead for the treasure body technique, Lu Changxing still spent an hour each day cultivating the 100 Refinements treasure body technique. Eventually, Lu Changxing bought everything he needed, spending 236 spirit stones, adding more difficulties to his already not affluent household. The day of his visit to the White Jade Tower would be postponed yet again. After leaving the Qingyun Commerce Guild, Lu Changxing passed by the Thousand Mechanism Pavilion, a shop selling puppets. He went in to inquire about the prices of the puppets. The shopkeeper told him that different puppets, with different effects, even of the same grade, have different prices. Then he told him the rough prices of the puppets. A first-grade inferior puppet cost about 70 to 80 spirit stones. Chapter 142, Screwing on the Assembly Line. A first-grade middle-grade puppet costs about 300 spirit stones. A first-grade superior-grade puppet costs about 1,100 spirit stones. A first-grade supreme puppet costs about 3,000 spirit stones. After hearing the prices, Lu Changxing bid farewell and left. It was not that the prices were too high, he was just inquiring about how much the puppets could sell for. Regarding the prices, Lu Changxing could only say that puppets indeed made money, but compared to talismans, they could only be considered as earning a bit of hard-earned money. Of course, if the other party's production resembled the assembly line process he envisioned, that would be a different story. After buying the materials, Lu Changxing didn't return to the spiritual talisman shop, but went straight home instead. After all, there was a child born in the family today, so naturally he wanted to go back early and check. Once home, Lu Changxing visited his newborn child and carried it to the yard to sit leisurely. Occasionally sitting in the yard with the child, enjoying the quiet, was also a form of relaxation for Lu Changxing. Of course, that was under the premise that the child wasn't crying. After sitting quietly for a while, he came to report to Lu Changxing that Xia Long from next door had come to visit. Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing immediately got up, handed the child to Bai He, and went to greet Xia Long with a hearty laugh. This neighbor was a major customer of his. Every few months, he would come to purchase talismans, and he would always buy superior-grade talismans. He was considered a fairly stable channel for selling talismans. Lu Daoist, are you preparing for another adventure? Lu Changxing arrived in the main hall, saw Xia Long, and asked. He remembered that the latter had returned just a half a month ago. Yes, I am already 50 years old. If I don't give it my all now, there won't be any opportunity left. Besides, there are twin children at home who are about to start their cultivation. Xia Long sighed and spoke thus. Lu Changxing knew that when he said there won't be any opportunity left, he was referring to foundation establishment. In the cultivation world, there's a widespread saying. If a cultivator wants to tackle foundation establishment, the last age limit is 60 years old. After 60, the body will start to decline. Not only will the chance of successfully establishing a foundation decrease, but the risk will also become greater. After all, foundation establishment is no joke. If the process fails, one might end up lightly wounded and regress in cultivation level, or at worst suffer severe damage to the meridians, become a cripple, or even directly perish. Lu Daoist, what kind of talismans are you looking for this time? Lu Changxing didn't dwell on the topic but asked directly. Do you have any thunder-summoning talismans, golden light barrier talismans, sweet dew talismans, and escape talismans? Xia Long inquired. There are several of those talismans carried by Lu. How many of each do you need, Xia Daoist? Lu Changsheng replied nonchalantly. Do you have 2 or 3 thunder-summoning talismans? Xiaolong asked. Just so happens I have 3. If you need them, Xia Daoist, I can sell all of them to you, as I just so happen to need to restock next month. Lu Changsheng said. Of course, that was not true. The talismans he sold to Xiaolong were usually ones he had drawn for his own protection and carried on himself. He had over 100 superior-grade talismans. And about 50 supreme talismans. The reason there were only so many talismans and he didn't draw more was partly because of limited time. Furthermore, aside from personal defense, he had no secure channel for selling them. Material costs were what they were, so it wasn't good to stockpile too many. Then I thank you, Lu Daoist. Aside from the 3 thunder-summoning talismans, I would like one of each of the other 3 types of talismans. Xiaolong said. Xia Daoist, you're purchasing so many talismans this time. Is the place you're going to particularly dangerous? I also have a thunder talisman on me for personal protection. If you need it, I can sell that to you as well. Lu Changsheng thought that he was currently in need of money, and having dealt with Xiaolong as a neighbor for so long, he felt it was possible to sell the other party 1 or 2 supreme talismans. After all, he did have a thunder talisman given to him by the 4th elder, which made the offer plausible. Daoist Lu actually has a supreme talisman available for sale? I wonder at what price you are selling it. Upon hearing this, Xiaolong's face immediately lit up with joy. This is also for self-defense from my family elders. If Daoist Xia needs it, consider it as me selling next month's supreme talisman from the store in advance. As for the price, it'll be the same as the store's, 220 spirit stones. Lu Changsheng said so. Okay, then thank you very much, Daoist Lu. Xiaolong immediately clasped his hands in thanks. In the 9 Dragons market, supreme talismans were not so easy to buy. Now that he heard there were some available, he naturally wanted to purchase them. Daoist Xia is too courteous. Lu Changsheng took out 7 talismans from his storage bag and then said, that will be a total of 490 spirit stones. Just give me 450 spirit stones, Daoist Xia. He would always give Xiaolong a discounted price when trading with him. This was one of the reasons why the other party regularly came to him to purchase talismans. Not only was the channel stable, the quality of the talismans was guaranteed, and the prices were relatively favorable. Alright, thank you, Daoist Lu. Xiaolong was also very straightforward. He took out 450 spirit stones from his storage bag and then took his leave. Lu Changsheng saw him out and then hummed contentedly, indeed, talismans are the true path to wealth. What good are those trashy puppet masters? They're not worth a damn. The cost of these 7 talismans, 6 superior-grade talismans, was about 15 spirit stones. And the cost for the supreme talisman Thunder Talisman was only 7 spirit stones. The cost of 22 spirit stones in total was sold for 450 spirit stones, a profit of more than 20 times over. It was completely incomparable to making puppets. I can go to White Jade Tower tomorrow. Looking at the warm spirit stones, Lu Changsheng thought to himself. He also had over 200 spirit stones on him, plus these 450, he could find 1 or 2 high-quality female cultivators. At the same time, he hoped that Daoist Xia could return safely. Otherwise, he would lose a stable major client. The next day, Lu Changsheng with his spirit stones arrived at the White Jade Tower. Having been through the process before, he spent 580 spirit stones and bought 2 maids. One with a 9th grade spiritual root and the other with an 8th grade spiritual root. Both were pitiful people with good looks and figures, which stirred compassion. Lu Changsheng had a soft spot for such pitiable people. Originally, he could have bought someone with a 7th grade spiritual root with the spirit stones he had. But after some consideration, Lu Changsheng decided to buy 2 instead. He wanted both quality and quantity. As before, he would have to wait for notification from the White Jade Tower. Sigh, the White Jade Tower really is a gold mine. Next time I have money, I should first buy materials for 2nd-rank talismans. Lu Changsheng walked out of the White Jade Tower, sighed, and shook his head. In the blink of an eye, another half-month passed. Lu Changsheng's 41st child was born. And at this time, Lu Changsheng was also preparing to return home for a visit. There were still about 10 days until the Lu family's spiritual root testing ceremony. Lu Pingon, Lu Wuyu, and Lu Shila were all set to participate. Even though he already knew the outcome, that the 4 children participating in the test had no spiritual root, it was still the first time his children were attending the spiritual root testing ceremony. He, as a father, had to go back and witness it. I hope there won't be any mishaps this time when I go back alone, Lu Changsheng thought to himself as he walked. To avoid drawing attention in the marketplace for being too flamboyant, he had disguised himself this time, transforming into a dark-skinned, ordinary-looking young man. Chapter 143. Dad, can I cultivate without a spiritual root? _1 After leaving the 9 Dragons Market, Lu Changsheng did not ride the iron feather eagle. Instead, he took out a flying artifact he had once acquired from a robber cultivator from his storage bag. Now that he had broken through to the energy refinement late stage, he was also able to maneuver the flying artifact to travel. Of course, Lu Changsheng had no intention of flying back to Qingzhou Mountain on the artifact. That would be unrealistic. He simply thought that since he had disguised himself, he might as well make the disguise convincing, and to experience the flying artifact as well. This flying artifact was shaped like a circular wheel. Lu Changsheng channeled his spiritual power into it and threw it into the air before jumping onto it. With a slight movement of his mental spirit and maintaining it with his spiritual power, the wheel began to fly. The base speed of this flying artifact was not very fast. It was only a bit faster than a spirit steed. But compared to a flying sword artifact, it consumed very little spiritual power. If one wanted to increase speed for escaping or such, the consumption of spiritual power would increase exponentially. After flying about 10 kilometers, Lu Changsheng felt that 1/10 of his spiritual power was depleted. Such a flying artifact consumes quite a lot and is not suitable for long-distance travel. For long-distance flight during the Qi refinement realm, one still needs to rely on flying mounts or flying boats that fly using spirit stones. Lu Changsheng shook his head and said. He then descended from the flying artifact, took out the iron feather eagle from the spiritual pet bag and mounted it. Flap, flap. The iron feather eagle spread its wings and soared into the sky, speeding towards Qingzhou Mountain. 2 days later, Qingzhou Mountain. Lu Changsheng, handsome and tall, dressed in a blue silk robe embroidered with bamboo leaves, dismounted from the iron feather eagle. The journey had been very smooth, with no incidents. But now, with a cultivation level in the late stage of Qi refinement, more than 100 superior-grade talismans, about 50 supreme talismans, and a talisman treasure, Lu Changsheng also felt a sense of security in his heart. It was not as worrisome as before during the trip. After Lu Changsheng returned home, his wives and children were naturally overjoyed. While chatting with Lu Miaoyan, he also learned that the testing for spiritual roots would begin in 5 days. He also found out that during his last 3 days at home, one of his wives had conceived, meaning that the maid he had impregnated at the 9 Dragons Market was carrying his 50th child. After spending some time at home with his wives and daughters, Lu Changsheng went to pay his respects to the 4th elder. After all, having returned, he had to pay a visit. Knowing that Lu Changsheng had come back for his children's spiritual root testing, the 4th elder did not say much. He inquired about Lu Changsheng's past 3 months and checked his talisman skills. 5 days later, the Lu family's testing for spiritual roots began. Lu Changsheng, accompanied by Lu Lanshu, Lu Qing'er, Lu Zier, and Lu Lianer, along with their 4 children, arrived at a square at Qingzhou Villa. The ceremony for testing spiritual roots was held here. There, Lu Changsheng saw many Lu family disciples. He also saw the immortal seedlings that had come with him to the Lu family. All were there with their children to participate in the testing ceremony. But although it was called a grand ceremony, there were not many people. The number of children was around 40. Everyone, line up. The testing was presided over by an elder of the Lu family. Uncle Fu and several Lu family disciples maintained order. Lu Changxing also had his 4 little ones line up to wait for their spiritual roots to be tested. The artifact used for testing spiritual roots was a crystal column about a meter long. The children stepped forward, dropped a drop of blood on it, then touched it with both hands and waited for 30 seconds. If they possessed spiritual roots, the crystal column would react. Now, the testing for spiritual roots begins. Seeing that the time was right, the Lu family elders started and allowed the first child to step forward. Husband. All 4 of Lu Lansh's children looked tense and full of hope and expectation. This moment would determine the fate of their children. If they were without spiritual roots, they would only be able to become ordinary mortals. Although with the support of the Lu family and Lu Changxing, their children could lead a life of wealth and ease in the secular world, as mothers, they naturally hoped their children would have spiritual roots and be able to cultivate. To become exalted cultivators. Seeing their nervous faces, Lu Changxing sighed softly without saying a word. He simply gently patted their hands, signaling them not to be too nervous. Next. 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 One by one, the children stepped forward to be tested. But the crystal column remained unresponsive, meaning they did not possess spiritual roots. Seeing this scene, not only did the surrounding parents and elders feel nervous and disappointed, the children in line also became tense. Having grown up in the environment of Qingzhou Mountain, they were well aware that this moment concerned their future destiny. Just then, a child placed their palm on the crystal column. It revealed 3 layers of light with a faint red hue. Not bad, a 7th grade spiritual root, with a propensity for fire. The elder responsible for testing spiritual roots saw this and smiled. Ugh. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. My son has spiritual roots, 7th grade spiritual roots. A young man not far away cried out excitedly after seeing this. Lu Changxing remembered him. He was one of the immortal seedlings who had come to the Lu family with him. Unexpectedly, the man's first child had spiritual roots, and they were 7th grade. That was indeed fortunate. No loud noises, Uncle Fu reminded in a low voice. But he did not blame the man. The testing continued and found another child with 8th grade spiritual roots. It was the child of a direct descendant of the Lu family. And now it was Lu Pingan's turn. Chapter 144. Dad, can I not cultivate without a spiritual root? As Lu Changxing had anticipated, nothing unexpected occurred. The crystal cylinder remained unresponsive. Not only him, but following suit, Lu Wuyu, and Lu Xila all experienced the same result. Sigh. Watching the 4 children complete the test, none of them possessing a spiritual root. Even though he had been mentally prepared for this, aware of the likelihood, Lu Changxing still let out a slight sigh. Dad, Mom. The 4 little ones came over. Due to not having detected a spiritual root, their little faces showed a touch of disappointment. They were all over 5, almost 6 years old. They also roughly understood what a spiritual root meant. Although Lu Changxing had inoculated them with reality, telling them that cultivation wasn't all that great and that a mortal life could be good as well. Nevertheless, these children were mostly raised by their mother. Compared to Lu Changxing, she held even greater hopes for them to soar to great heights. It's fine, most people don't have a spiritual root. If not, then so be it. Come on, Dad will take you home for some delicious food. Lu Changxing rubbed the heads of his 4 children and spoke in a tender voice. Daddy, I want to eat beast milk cake. Lu Wuyu and Lu Xila, the 2 girls, seemed to take it slightly better and smiled. Lu Pingan and Lu Wuyu didn't take it quite as well. The family of 9 headed home. Just as they reached their doorstep, Lu Pingan suddenly looked up and said to Lu Changxing, Dad, does not having a spiritual root really mean one can't become a cultivator? I want to become a cultivator just like you. On hearing this, Lu Changxing saw the hopeful look in his son's eyes and paused, feeling a pang of heartache. Yet he could only respond without words. Without a spiritual root, one cannot cultivate. This was the unassailable truth, an iron law of the cultivation world. Even with a system at his disposal, he did not dare claim he could break this iron law. He opened his mouth as if wanting to speak, but found himself at a loss for words. Pingon. Lu Lanshu immediately looked at her son with a hint of sternness in her eyes, yet they radiated with compassion. Dad, don't be sad, Pingon will not cultivate anymore. On hearing this, Lu Pingon looked at his father's countenance, pursed his lips, and immediately spoke. Daddy, don't be sad. Lu Wio on the side also said in a childish voice. Although the little ones were still young, they understood a great deal. Lu Changsheng looked at his sensible children, feeling somewhat gratified, but also a bit ashamed. Gently, he stroked their heads but said nothing. The next day, Lu Changsheng rode the iron feather eagle back to the Nine Dragons marketplace. Alas, I thought after all these years, my heart had turned to stone. Lu Changsheng, thinking of the previous day's events, couldn't help but let out a soft sigh. Considering that this situation would recur annually made him sigh again. In this world, who can truly have it all? This is but one of the harsh realities of the cultivation world. Lu Changsheng, gazing at the clear blue sky and the forests and peaks below, let out a long breath as if to expel all the frustration from his chest. Just then, Lu Changsheng suddenly felt the fluctuation of several auras from the side. He looked over. He saw a slender young man in luxurious clothing riding a purple flying serpent. Behind him, 3 figures were chasing on a cloud of darkness while 2 others, using flying artifacts, continued to attack the young man. It was clear that they were in pursuit, intent on killing him. Lu Changsheng was a bit surprised at the scene. The young man apparently had the cultivation level of the energy refinement late stage. Yet, despite facing 5 cultivators' assault, he was only slightly flustered. While parrying their onslaught, he could also manage to direct a swarm of golden insects, like bees, towards the 5 pursuers. Go! Lu Changsheng didn't look any further. A wise man stays away from danger. He immediately directed the iron feather eagle to dive below, not wanting to get involved in this situation. However, the young man riding the flying serpent also noticed Lu Changsheng, and his eyes suddenly lit up. That glance made Lu Changsheng feel as if thorns were pricking his back. This further convinced him that the young man was no ordinary individual. Fellow Daoist, to meet is to share fate. I offer you a great opportunity. This is a bottle of Xian Yin True Water, a foundation establishment spiritual object. It aids in the foundation establishment process. With that, the young man shouted out to Lu Changsheng. He directly tossed a black porcelain bottle towards Lu Changsheng. Lu Changsheng's brow furrowed, and his expression darkened slightly. He instantly knew that the other was attempting to divert trouble towards him. But upon hearing the words foundation establishment spiritual object and seeing the approaching bottle, he couldn't help but be tempted and caught it with his hand. After all, he had reached the 7th level of energy refinement. It was time for him to consider foundation establishment. To achieve foundation establishment, it's best to use external aids, not just rely on oneself. 99% of cultivators utilize external objects to boost their chances during foundation establishment. Otherwise, attempting foundation establishment without any aid was tantamount to courting death. Among the objects that offer the most significant aid to foundation establishment is the foundation establishment elixir. During foundation establishment, if one consumes an elixir, it can stabilize chi and blood, massively increase mana, stimulate divine sense, and harmonize spirit, energy, and soul. Even if one fails in foundation establishment, they won't suffer from the backlash. Besides the elixir, there are numerous foundation establishment spiritual objects that can aid in the process. This Xian Yin True Water is especially helpful for overcoming one of the 3 barriers of foundation establishment: the chi, blood barrier, the mana barrier, and the divine sense barrier, particularly with the mana barrier. To keep or not to keep, even if I don't use the Xian Yin True Water myself, wouldn't it fetch at least 2,000 to 3,000 spirit stones if I sold it? Lu Changsheng thought to himself while looking at the porcelain bottle. After a brief consideration of the pros and cons, Lu Changxing immediately made a decision. Having already gotten involved, even if he didn't want the object, things probably wouldn't just end there. Moreover, he wanted it. Chapter 145. Dad, can't I cultivate without a spiritual root? If I want the item and prefer not to start trouble, then there's only one solution. Lu Changxing looked indifferently at the youth and the 5 people pursuing him. The 5 people chasing the youth saw this, and even though they knew the youth was drawing disaster toward them, the leader did not hesitate. He directly said, "Third, fourth, go retrieve the Xian true water." "Yes, big brother." Upon hearing this, the 2 men looked toward Lu Changxing, maneuvered their flying magic artifacts, and charged straight at the iron feather eagle. Buzz! Lu Changxing immediately cast a golden light barrier talisman. A layer of golden light spread, enveloping both him and the iron feather eagle. The iron feather eagle couldn't afford any mishaps. Otherwise, there was still a whole day's journey to the 9 Dragons market. Immediately after, in his 2 hands, he held a dozen or so talismans in one and a thick talisman inscribed with a golden brick in the other. It was precisely the golden light brick talisman treasure. The youth in front of him and these 5 were no ordinary people. Therefore, if he were to take action, he had to be decisive and end the battle quickly. Superior grade talismans, looks like you're quite wealthy, kid. However, we of the Ko family 5 fierce take a fancy to something, and you dare to gather it up. Aren't you afraid you'll have the luck to gather it but no life to enjoy it? Third and fourth charged towards Lu Changxing with a grim smile on their faces. One was wielding a great saber, and the other a great hammer, both exuding immensely fierce might. A golden light barrier talisman was only a superior grade talisman, and it could probably only withstand 1 or 2 hits. Watching the great saber and hammer coming at him, Lu Changxing's expression remained indifferent, his robes fluttering without wind, rustling loudly as he threw out the stack of talismans in his hand. Out of nowhere, fire clouds, fire serpents, and wind blades appeared and sped towards the 2 men. "Kid, with just these tricks, you think you can snatch treasures from us?" That's simply. Third and fourth saw the onslaught and remained unfazed, their hands performing a spell to protect themselves with magic artifacts. However, in the next moment, they saw a golden glowing rectangular object in Lu Changxing's hand shoot up into the air, quickly enlarging and shining brightly. It emitted a majestic aura like mountains, making them feel weighted down as if a great mountain had fallen on them. Their complexions instantly turned pale. "This is a talisman treasure," they both exclaimed in shock and anger. Simultaneously, Lu Changxing used his mental spirit to control the golden light brick talisman treasure. He readied the golden light brick for a second attack, locking onto the life force of the youth on the flying serpent and the 3 on the dark cloud. If they wanted the treasures but didn't want to stir up trouble, then killing everyone would be the perfect solution to prevent future problems. Armed with lethal weapons, the intent to kill arose spontaneously. Having tasted success in 2 previous encounters, Lu Changxing not only felt sweet satisfaction but also gained a measure of confidence. He was confident that as long as he didn't face a Foundation Establishment great cultivator, he had nothing to fear. As for a Foundation Establishment great cultivator, as long as he wasn't face to face, he was still willing to fight. The blood-colored flying dagger shot forth, piercing through the magical shield that Lu Changxing had summoned, causing his eyes to narrow. He hurriedly took out 5 golden light barrier talismans, layering 5 levels of golden light barriers on himself. In a magical duel, one absolutely cannot afford any mistakes. With ferocious might, the blood-colored flying dagger, after breaking through the magical shield, instantly reached Lu Changxing and penetrated 3 layers of the golden light barrier talismans before it ran out of force upon the 4th layer. Such a fierce assault. Lu Changxing couldn't help but feel shocked. Without distraction, he controlled the golden light brick, which had risen anew, to smash down towards the 4 of them. "Fellow Daoist, this is a misunderstanding. The skinny youth riding the flying serpent felt a heaviness in his body and shouted loudly. He immediately slapped his waist bag, and suddenly countless black insects appeared, enveloping his body like armor, in an attempt to escape. And the three on the dark cloud at this moment knew they had lost the chance to kill Lu Chongqing. After exchanging glances, they pinched their spells together, transforming the dark cloud beneath them into a blood color, forcibly breaking free from the suppression of the golden light brick's power and trying to escape the reach of the golden light brick. Lu Chongqing hadn't expected all four of them to have such tactics up their sleeves. Indeed, they were not simple. He immediately took out 3 talismans and set them off. A superior grade talisman, the soul-shaking talisman. A supreme talisman, the thunder talisman. A supreme talisman, the heaven and earth net talisman. With the launch of the 3 talismans, a thunderous, dull sound appeared out of the void first. It unsettled the heart and induced fear. Immediately after, a thunderbolt exploded along the escape route of the 3 above the blood cloud, blocking their retreat. Then, a black net large enough to stretch all around took shape, trapping the 4 and closing in on them. Chapter 146. Is this also considered peach blossom luck? Not good. Second brother, fifth brother, hold on. The 4 individuals, upon seeing the heaven and earth net converging from all directions and the heavy bombardment of golden light bricks from above, also abandoned their fight against each other and, in order to protect themselves, simultaneously launched their techniques. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The gaunt young man riding on the flying serpent had innumerable dense bugs appear around him, turning him, who seemed to be already clad in insect armor, into a pitch-black bug cocoon. As for the 3 brothers on the blood cloud, the eldest clasped his hands in a spell, causing the blood cloud to boil and surge, wrapping all 3 brothers within, in an attempt to break free from the heaven and earth net. The second brother stimulated several talismans in succession, creating protective shields of air around them. The youngest brother then took out a blue magic bead the size of a fist that emitted a pale blue glow and suspended it above his head. At that instant, bang! The golden light bricks, large as small mountains, fell heavily onto the 4. Lu Chongqing could tell that the 4 were no simpletons, which is why he did not pull back his attack. He pushed the golden light bricks to their limit, dropping them directly from the air to smash the 4 to the ground and grind them into mush. Indeed, they didn't die. Now at the 7th level energy refinement, Lu Chongqing, whether in terms of controlling the talisman treasure golden light bricks or in his mental spirit perception, had become much stronger. He could sense that the 4 being smashed by the golden light bricks had not yet died, and were still resisting, trying to break free from the golden light bricks, trying to escape the bonds of the heaven and earth net talisman. He immediately took out another stack of talismans. Supreme Talisman, Heaven and Earth Net Talisman. Supreme Talisman, Chaos Talisman. Superior Grade Talisman, Binding Body Talisman. Superior Grade Talisman, Dungeon Talisman. 2 Heaven and Earth Net Talismans flew out. Everywhere they went, black nets formed, covering all around the golden light bricks, to prevent the 4 from truly escaping from under the assault of the golden light bricks. The Chaos Talisman could disrupt the spiritual power of energy refinement cultivators, causing internal spiritual power to become chaotic. The Binding Body Talisman could restrain and bind a person's body, affecting their movements. A Chaos Talisman and 4 Binding Body Talismans turned into rainbows of light and shot towards the ground beneath the golden light bricks, disturbing the resistance of the 4. Then, Lu Chongqing commanded the Iron Feather Eagle to dive rapidly, preparing to cast the Dungeon Talisman in the area where the golden light bricks were about to land. But at that moment, the Iron Feather Eagle, under the imposing might of the golden light bricks, got frightened, cried out and refused to approach. Motherfucker! Lu Chongqing glanced at the unimpressive Iron Feather Eagle, tossed out his flying artifact, jumped onto a round wheel, and quickly descended, activating the Dungeon Talisman. He directly solidified the ground into a cage to prevent the 4 from escaping at the moment of impact using Earth escape techniques. After he finished, Lu Changxing held another stack of attack talismans in his hand. If the four still had a breath of life after that, he would give them another round of firepower. Just then, boom! The golden light bricks fell from the sky with great force, crashing to the ground and making a world-shaking noise. It seemed as though the entire mountain range quaked violently. All the birds and demon beasts in the vicinity were so terrified that they trembled and scattered in all directions, flying out of the forest. The already startled iron feather eagle let out a deafening screech at the sound, flapping its wings as though it might crash. Lu Changxing paid no attention to the iron feather eagle, watching the golden light bricks standing tall on the ground like a golden hill. His eyes narrowed slightly. Are they dead? At that moment, he himself wasn't sure if the four were actually dead. After all, from their earlier display, it was clear that their techniques were anything but simple. If it weren't for his talismans blocking their way, he would have almost let the four escape from beneath the assault of the golden light bricks. Pity I don't understand formations, nor do I have a formation artifact, otherwise setting up a formation now would make things much more secure, Lu Changxing mused to himself. Thinking this over, he took another stack of talismans out of his storage bag. Superior Grade Talisman, Earth Collapse Rocket Talisman. Superior Grade Talisman, Blue-Silver Entwining Talisman. Supreme Talisman, Chaos Talisman. He set up 4 traps in 4 different directions around the golden light bricks. The moment anyone dared to move even slightly, they would trigger the Earth Collapse Rocket Talisman and the Blue-Silver Entwining Talisman. They would be caught off guard, entangled by blue vines sprouting from the ground in a burst, while being simultaneously targeted by rockets. As for the Chaos Talisman, it was to be used in conjunction with the attack talismans in his hand to disrupt the four's spiritual power before a barrage of firepower. Having made the preparations, Lu Changxing's mental spirit stirred slightly, allowing the golden light bricks to slowly rise. If the four still showed signs of life, he wouldn't have to trigger any more talisman treasures. He could simply drop them again. As the golden light bricks rose, a pit appeared, both dozens of feet wide and deep. Lu Changxing, standing tall and straight on his flying artifact, slowly moved forward and peered into the pit. Inside it, the 3 brothers from the blood cloud had become unrecognizable masses of flesh and blood, dead beyond any doubt. And that young man who had turned into a huge bug cocoon had become dried up and lifeless. The purple flying snake next to them was a blur of blood and flesh as well. Lu Changxing used his mental spirit to sense for a moment, assuring himself there was no breath of life from the 3 masses of flesh and the huge cocoon, nor from the purple python, before he finally felt at ease. Still, to be utterly cautious, Lu Changxing produced fireballs in his palm, shooting them into the pit. Cultivators had many techniques, and these 4 were no easy targets. He had to be careful. Only when reduced to ashes could one be sure they were truly dead. Under the fireballs, the 3 masses of flesh and the flying snake turned into remains, burnt by the flames until very little was left. The black bug cocoon crackled as it burned in the fire. Then suddenly, the black cocoon shook violently, and a gaunt figure shot out from it, trying to leap out of the deep pit. But in the next moment, blue vines burst rapidly from the ground, binding the figure. At the same time, rockets appeared out of nowhere, targeting the young man and firing towards him. Not only had he nearly been killed today, but now he was humbling himself to make peace, and the other party responded with cold words. Compensation. As long as you offer sufficient compensation, I will let you go, Lu Changxing said, ignoring his attitude and pulling out a stack of supreme talismans. If he cowered just because of the opponent's heavenly thunder pearl, the initiative would be in the opponent's hands. He didn't believe the other party would really choose mutual destruction. Furthermore, by showing off these many supreme talismans, he was also making a show of force. He wanted the other party to know that if they went for mutual destruction, he might die but Lu Changxing might not. The young man, feeling the faint oppressive force from the golden light above his head and seeing the stack of talismans in Lu Changxing's hand, realized he couldn't escape this situation. If he didn't bleed a little today, He feared he wouldn't be able to resolve this peacefully. He took a deep breath and took a jade box from his waist, then tossed it to Lu Changxing, saying, "Inside is a heavenly heart lotus, also a foundation establishment spirit object, helpful in developing divine sense during foundation establishment. This should compensate for your losses, shouldn't it?" Lu Changxing enveloped the jade box in spiritual power to check it. Afterward, he opened the box and saw inside a snow-white lotus flower emitting a faint glow. The moment the box was opened, a refreshing scent wafted out, invigorating the spirit. Good stuff. Lu Changxing immediately closed the box, knowing such spiritual objects must be kept in a treasure box to prevent the loss of their potency. He then looked at the young man and said indifferently, "Give me one more foundation establishment spirit object that benefits the physical body, and well, call it even." Do you think foundation establishment spirit objects are just lying around everywhere? Where am I supposed to find so many? The young man retorted angrily. To his knowledge, just one of these spirit objects could be worth at least 2,000 to 3,000 spirit stones and was considered priceless. Having 2 of these spirit objects was already quite fortunate for him. Lu Changxing, not believing his words, eyed him suspiciously. After all, the man had used a foundation establishment spirit object when causing trouble. And now here was another foundation establishment spirit object. To have survived the attack of his talisman treasure and so many talismans was no small feat now. To produce a heavenly thunder pearl of such rarity also indicated that the young man was no simple character. What are you looking at? Are you going to let me go or not? The young man became impatient under Lu Changxing's scrutiny while holding the heavenly thunder pearl. "I saw you commanding so many insects. You must possess an insect commanding technique, right? Give me that technique and we'll settle this." Lu Changxing didn't want to push the man to desperation. Even a cornered dog will leap over a wall, much less a person. Thinking about the insect commanding technique the other party had used, he became interested. He thought it might be useful to raise some insects himself. "That's out of the question, it's a secret technique of my family," the young man immediately refused. He then added, "However, I can give you a beast taming inheritance." Beast taming inheritance? Which grade? Lu Changxing inquired upon hearing this. He had been considering obtaining a method to tame and command beasts. Perhaps he could accelerate the growth of the 9 Netherhound. However, from his inquiries in the marketplace, he learned that knowledge was tightly monopolized in this world. This was true for both cultivation methods and the inheritance of various cultivator arts. First-grade inheritances were a little easier, being obtainable for the right price. But for higher grades, it wasn't simply a matter of spending money to acquire them. Of course, Lu Changxing also knew that he hadn't reached that level yet. Chapter 148. Is this also considered peach blossom luck? A second-rank beast taming inheritance. The young man said, "Okay." Lu Changxing nodded at the words. He wanted to see if this beast taming inheritance would be of any use to him. If not, a second-rank beast taming inheritance could still fetch a good price. Right away, the young man took a jade slip out of his storage bag and tossed it to Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing wrapped the jade tube in mana and checked it. Afterward, he glanced through it briefly. It contained various methods of cultivating and training demon beasts. "Fine, you can go now." Lu Changxing pocketed the jade slip and directly said. The youth was momentarily stunned upon hearing this. He hadn't expected Lu Changxing to be so straightforward. Without hesitation, he threw out a flying artifact, stood on it, and then cautiously watched Lu Changxing as he slowly left. Lu Changxing watched the young man as well. He only relaxed after seeing that he was truly gone. With a wave of his hand, he collected the somewhat tattered magical robe, magical boots, and storage bag from the deep pit. Then he stored away the talisman treasure that was now significantly dimmed. Lu Changxing estimated that if it were to burst forth like that again, it could probably only last 6 or 7 more times. If it were activated with full force by someone in the foundation establishment stage, probably only twice. Lu Changxing wasn't distressed and stowed the talisman treasure away. He then started to search for the magic artifacts that had fallen to the ground, as well as the magic artifacts and corpses of the two people. After all, it was all money. After searching for almost half an hour, Lu Changsheng found two bodies that were akin to lumps of flesh. He took out the damaged magical robe and storage bag from their bodies and helped them return to dust. Sigh, although I was led into trouble this time and had issues come upon me in the end, I was also moved by greed, thinking of killing for treasure to make a quick buck. After pocketing the items, Lu Changsheng said to himself. He was clearly aware that he had tasted the sweetness from the previous 2 times he had killed for treasure. Therefore, he also had some thoughts about such things. However, this time, it had also made him a bit more cautious and wary. Even with a talisman treasure by his side, and a bunch of superior and supreme talismans, it didn't mean he was invincible in the chi refinement realm. Like the young man just now, whose methods were incredibly shocking. To still be alive under the attack of the talisman treasure and so many talismans was simply astonishing. Lu Changsheng couldn't even figure out how he had managed it. One must never underestimate anyone in this world. It's better to be stable and cautious, not to rush things. Lu Changsheng admonished himself. He decided to find a place to tally up his gains. Suddenly, he felt a fluctuation of mana coming his way. He looked up. It was the young man who had just left. Instantly, a stack of talismans appeared in his hand. Wait, fellow Daoist, I came here because I want to propose a collaboration. The young man quickly raised his hand and said, looking at Lu Changsheng. Collaboration. Lu Changsheng frowned. He thought this person was troubled. They had just been fighting fiercely, and now he had come to propose a collaboration? I'm preparing to explore the cave mansion of a true immortal, so I want to collaborate with you, friend, to explore together, the youth said. Not interested, Lu Changsheng flatly refused. He felt he had already been greedy enough just by killing people for their treasures, and he shouldn't do such things in the future. How could he possibly be interested in exploring any cave mansions? Let alone a true immortal's cave mansion. Even if it were a nascent soul true lord's cave mansion, he wasn't interested. In the cultivation world, if you covet the treasures left by others, people will covet your own life. Friend, I won't hide it from you. This true immortal's cave mansion is a legacy of my ancestors. Inside, there is a bloodline treasure that I greatly need, but I have just lost many resources, and am not certain I can handle it alone, which is why I invited you to join me. I sincerely invite you, and after we explore the secret realm, aside from this bloodline treasure, you can choose any other items first. There should be some foundation establishment spirit objects beneficial for the fleshly body. The youth didn't expect Lu Changsheng to refuse flat out without even thinking and continued to speak. This trip was intended to accumulate strength for exploring this cave mansion. He didn't expect to attract the attention of the Ko clan's 5 fiends. He had hoped to lead the disaster eastward, to mitigate the loss, but it ended up bringing trouble upon himself. Under Lu Changsheng's tactics, his losses were even more severe. Not only did his pet beast, the flying serpent, die, but his tamed black-patterned bugs were mostly killed as well, losing him several life-saving measures. If it weren't for the urgent need for this treasure, he would not have sought Lu Changsheng's cooperation. Not interested, go find someone else, Lu Changsheng still replied with a wave of his hand. He would be crazy to take on such a mission. To him, the risks and rewards of such an endeavor were entirely disproportionate. That's not to mention collaborating with a stranger, who might even bear a grudge against him. Now, the best plan was to sort out his gains and hurry back to Nine Dragons Market to keep a low profile. A pile of materials and a multitude of miscellaneous items. Not sure what rank this set of formation artifacts is, what kind of formation it is. But at least it looks like a middle-grade formation artifact. When I get to the Nine Dragons Market, I can have someone appraise it. If it's decent, I can also keep it for myself. These artifacts, even with many damages and reduced prices, should be worth around 4,000 to 5,000 spirit stones. Add this set of formation artifacts, plus these elixir medicines, talismans, and materials, and the total value should be around 6,000 to 7,000 spirit stones. Looking at these items, a smile of joy spread across Lu Changsheng's face. He figured that these 5 ferocious individuals from the Ko clan must have had quite a reputation, having robbed and killed many cultivators. Otherwise, they couldn't possibly be so wealthy. After sorting out the spoils, Lu Changsheng used a superior grade purification talisman to purify everything once to ensure there were no issues. He also destroyed a few unrecognizable suspicious items by digging a hole and burying them. If you add the second-rank beast taming legacy, the mysterious Een True Water, the Sky Heart Lotus, and these 2 foundation establishment spirit objects that I obtained, the total value of this haul is over 10,000 spirit stones. And what I paid for it was merely the power of 2 strikes from a talisman treasure, 6 supreme talismans, 19 superior grade talismans, and 20 middle grade talismans. No wonder so many people turn to being robber cultivators. Killing and looting really can become addictive. Lu Changsheng took a deep breath and slowly exhaled, unable to help but feel reflective. At this moment, he even entertained the idea of making money through fishing. But as soon as the thought emerged, he immediately squashed it. One who often walks by the river cannot avoid getting their shoes wet. Why risk doing such things when I could just safely marry, take concubines, and have children, with a promising future ahead? Such things should be left to chance encounters. Actively seeking them out is absolutely out of the question. After all, once you start such deeds, there is an endless path ahead. Once you begin, it's akin to walking down a road of no return. Think about it, as a talisman master, my income is already the envy of countless cultivators. But compared to the way robber cultivators make money, there's simply no comparison. Having experienced this way of making money, how could one possibly calm down and work, earning spirit stones through labor? At this moment, Lu Changsheng also roughly understood the mindset of those who hunted demon beasts and delved into dungeons of secret realms. Cultivators accustomed to such quick cash find it too difficult to settle down and live a stable life without a special skill or craft. Once I get to the 9 Dragons Market, I'll dispose of these items as quickly as possible. That way, I'll have a sure footing for my second-rank talismans and second-rank puppets. Lu Changsheng's eyes sparkled with excitement. With second-rank talismans and puppets, he would have a sure means of protecting himself against Foundation establishment great cultivators. Thinking of the young man's return earlier, and needing to fence his loot upon reaching the 9 Dragons Market, Lu Changsheng immediately put on the 100 change mask, transforming into a dark-skinned, ordinary-looking young man. Then he donned a gray robe, mounted the iron feather eagle, and headed toward the 9 Dragons marketplace. If possible, I really need to get a better flying mount. Lu Changsheng looked down at the iron feather eagle beneath him and thought to himself. Before, having a flying mount was delightful. But now that his standards had risen, he felt that the iron feather eagle truly left something to be desired. Chapter 150. Abundance in the basin and bowl, second tier in sight. Aside from traveling, he's really not up to par in other areas. Like earlier, when they encountered danger, he had to use talismans to protect the iron feather eagle. If there was a bit more commotion, the iron feather eagle would get scared and go out of control. If they were being pursued, relying on the iron feather eagle, it would be hard to get away. If I could do a system draw and get a flying pet beast, that problem would be solved directly, Lu Changsheng thought to himself. In his opinion, if he could draw a flying pet beast from the system, that would be ideal. After all, any pet obtained from the system draw was likely to be of heavenly grade bloodline. However, even if I drew a flying pet beast, if it's a cub, it wouldn't be easy to raise. Moreover, a pet beast that's too rare and unusual would be too conspicuous if ridden in public, and could easily be remembered by others. Lu Changsheng thought of the 9 netherhound he had been raising at home and slightly shook his head. He felt that without sufficient strength, even owning a rare pet beast wasn't advisable to take out casually. Like the 9 netherhound he had been keeping at the Lu family, which had been raised for nearly 4 years and was beginning to show its extraordinary nature. He estimated that in another 3 to 5 years, it would be obvious at a glance that it was not an ordinary demon beast and that its bloodline grade was high. By then, I'll just have to keep the 9 netherhound in the spiritual pet bag and carry it with me, or, as I considered before, find a mountain range where I can let it grow up on its own, Lu Changxing mused. If released into the wild, his only concern was that the 9 netherhound might encounter danger. After all, the 9 netherhound currently only had the strength of an early first-grade demon beast. And that's not very strong. Thinking of the second-rank beast taming inheritance he had just acquired, Lu Changxing took out the jade slip to review its content, to see if there were any methods that could help the 9 netherhound grow. The purple gold rat, a high-rank demon beast with a metallic bloodline, is to be typically fed spiritual materials and golden spirit rice in a ratio of 7:3 for its spirit food. When advancing to second rank, 10 gene of metal ore and 1 demon rat's core. The azure scale snake, a high-rank demon beast, snake eggs to be soaked in a mixture of azure jade liquid, spiritual wood, and first-grade spiritual water to create spiritual liquid, placed in a nest made of cold properties for hatching, taking 3 months to hatch, with daily feeding. The fiery flame bird, a high-rank demon beast. This jade slip inheritance contained many pieces of information about various demon beasts. It described how to cultivate, tame, and train them into spiritual pets, allowing them to grow rapidly. At the end of the jade slip, there was also a section on beast taming techniques. It allowed one to communicate with spiritual pets and impress upon them a master-servant contract. Although this inheritance doesn't have specific rearing methods for the 9 netherhound, based on the cultivation methods for pet beasts detailed here, it boils down to the traditional wisdom 3 parts training, 7 parts nutrition. It's essentially about how to ensure the least amount of money is spent for the best possible growth of a spiritual beast during its cultivation. After reading the content of the jade slip, Lu Changxing felt somewhat disappointed. He didn't seek the beast-taming inheritance in order to become a beast-tamer himself. Taming beasts couldn't compare with the system's draws. He simply wanted to see if such an inheritance would be helpful in raising the 9 netherhound. But having read it and arrived at such a conclusion, he naturally felt some disappointment. Even without the jade slip, he knew that if the 9 netherhound were to eat demon beast meat at every meal, it would certainly grow faster than it was now. Maybe I really should just release the 9 netherhound into the wild, or I could try releasing it for a while to see what the results are like. Otherwise, growing at this pace day by day, it's just too slow. Thinking of his estimate that the 9 netherhound would take 100 years to grow to a second-rank demon beast, Lu Changxing was leaning more towards releasing it. After all, the worst outcome of releasing it would just be losing the pet. That's not entirely unacceptable, right? Once I have second-rank talismans and a second-rank puppet, I can start looking for a suitable place to release the 9 netherhound. Then I'll also observe the 9 netherhound's survival skills, Lu Changxing resolved inwardly. A day later, when nearing 9 Dragons Market, Lu Changxing switched from the iron feather eagle to a flying artifact. Then in disguise, he flew on the flying artifact into 9 Dragons Marketplace, procured a temporary identity card, and entered the marketplace. He entered the city in this guise, naturally to facilitate selling off his spoils. Without even thinking about it, the loot obtained from the Ko family's 5 fiends was not the sort of thing to display openly. It might attract the attention of interested parties. So, prudence was crucial. Mainly, Lu Changxing was thinking of quickly selling the items for spirit stones. Otherwise, in a few years or even over a decade, slowly disposing of the items in small batches would be the most secure method. However, with spirit stones in hand, he would be able to inscribe second-rank talismans and craft second-rank puppets. Having 2 more cards up his sleeve, he felt his capacity to withstand risks would significantly increase, and thus considered that a little risk was acceptable. After entering the city, Lu Changxing made his way to a larger magical artifact shop with practiced ease. Esteemed fellow Daoist, what kind of magical artifact would you like to purchase? A shapely female shop assistant approached him. Is your shopkeeper here? I have second-hand magical artifacts I'd like to sell, Lu Changsheng said expressionlessly. Not long after, the shopkeeper came over beaming with a smile, greeting him, to which Lu Changsheng presented the magical artifacts he intended to sell. He didn't bring out all the artifacts at once, but only the Black Cloud artifact, 2 high-quality artifacts, and the damaged magical robe and boots. Fellow Daoist, your top-quality artifact is quite severely damaged, not just on the exterior but also with problems in the internal restrictions, so our shop can only offer you 820 spirit stones. May I make some recommendations? As soon as Lu Changxing walked into the Qingyun Commerce Guild, a beautiful female cultivator in a cheongsam came up, her smile beaming as she greeted him. I need a supreme talisman pen for magic artifacts, Lu Changxing said directly. Upon hearing this, the female cultivator paused, then her eyes lit up and her smile grew even wider. Please take a seat, fellow Daoist. She promptly invited Lu Changxing to sit down, pouring him some tea. Then she knelt beside him, her cheongsam tight, outlining her graceful figure. For convenience, our guild has illustrated some precious magic artifacts in a catalog, making it easy for distinguished customers like yourself to view, understand, and compare selections. If you see something you like, I will bring the actual item for you. Take a look at this Chihui Talisman Pen. It's the best-selling Supreme Talisman Pen at our Qingyun Commerce Guild. The cheongsam-clad female cultivator took out an antique jade scroll, turned to the page with talisman pens, and pointed to one of the pens. A 3-dimensional image of a red talisman pen appeared on the jade scroll. There was also accompanying introduction information. Chihui Talisman Pen. The pen tip is made from the neck fur of a second-rank azure-eyed golden lion demon beast, and the pen shaft is forged from a mixture of sky blue wood and chi gold. Lu Changxing nodded slightly. He had been to the Qingyun Commerce Guild before. He knew that the guild had grown large and strong not just because it was backed by the Qingyun sect. In terms of shopping experience, service, and the quality of the products, they really did a great job. He glanced at the price of the talisman pen. 1,600 spirit stones. He couldn't help but be astonished. Compared to when he had previously gotten a middle-grade magic artifact pen at the spiritual talisman shop of the Lu family for only 70% of the original price it cost, the profit margin at the Qingyun Commerce Guild was likely even higher. But it couldn't be helped. There were no supreme talisman pens for magic artifacts at the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop. Even if there were supreme talisman pens for sale, it wouldn't be right for him to buy them from his own family's shop. As expensive as it is, after all, this thing will last a long time, and he'll eventually make the money back. Lu Changsheng sighed softly in his heart. He knew this wasn't an expense he could avoid. Going to other shops might save him a little money, but it would waste time and be a hassle, with no guarantee they'd have the product in stock. He flipped through the jade scroll, looking at a few other supreme talisman pens. The cheapest is 1,400 spirit stones, and the most expensive is 2,000 spirit stones. Immediately, Lu Changsheng asked the female cultivator to bring over 5 different supreme talisman pens for him to examine. As expected of a supreme talisman brush, the flow of spiritual power is clearly smoother when drawing talismans. Even when spiritual power fluctuates slightly and becomes too scattered, it helps to smooth it out. After drawing 2 superior grade talismans and experiencing the effects of the supreme talisman brush, Lu Changxing nodded in approval. But this was just an additional effect of the talisman brush. The main effect of the Supreme Talisman Brush was to endure the surge of spirit ink and spiritual power, better outlining the talisman lines on the talisman paper. For example, with a middle-grade artifact talisman brush, no matter how high the talisman making skill, one couldn't use it to draw second-rank talismans. Night fell. Lu Changxing returned to his residence. He inquired about the home situation with Xiaoqing and the others over the past few days. Apart from the birth of his 42nd child, there weren't any other significant events. Lu Changxing nodded slightly, glanced at the child, had a meal, and then went to bed early to rest. The next day, Lu Changxing, fully refreshed, came to the talisman room of the spiritual talisman shop, preparing to begin drawing the second-rank talismans. He laid out the pale purple beast skin talisman paper, took the red glow talisman brush, and imbibed the talisman ink made from demon beast blood into the tip of the brush. Chapter 153. It's time for the child to practice martial arts afterward. Spiritual power surged into his palm, then onto the talisman brush in his hand, and finally to the tip of the brush. Under the flow of spiritual power, the brush shaft emitted a faint red glow, and the tip of the brush radiated a purple luster. Immediately, Lu Changxing, with a serious face and in total concentration, began to draw a second-rank talisman. The drawing process was very slow. The lines of the talisman appeared smooth and flowing, but each step seemed somewhat strenuous. It made sweat beads appear on Lu Changxing's forehead. Time passed bit by bit. Finally, Lu Changxing completed the last stroke of the talisman line. In an instant, all the lines of the talisman paper connected end to end, with purple currents surging through them, and flames spread from the edges of the paper, exuding a terrifying spiritual pressure. However, after a moment, the spiritual pressure dispersed, and the talisman lines solidified. A second-rank lower-grade talisman, the Thunder Fire Talisman, was completed. A success on the first attempt, not bad at all. Lu Changxing looked at the Thunder Fire Talisman with a satisfied expression and gently wiped the sweat from his forehead. Though drawing a second-rank talisman did not drain him completely, it was still a significant expenditure. His mental spirit and spiritual power were both greatly depleted, leaving him feeling exhausted. A second-rank lower-grade talisman, its power compares to a strike at the foundation establishment initial stage. However, with my current strength, I can't activate too many of this caliber at once. I must be careful in guiding and controlling them, otherwise, a slight mishap could cause injury to myself. Lu Changxing held the Thunder Fire Talisman in his hands, his face showing joy. A second-rank lower-grade talisman corresponds to a strike at the initial stage of foundation establishment. If used properly, it could even threaten cultivators at the foundation establishment stage. However, the higher the grade of the talisman, the greater the demands on one's mental spirit and control over spiritual power. This is why Lu Changxing can use dozens of first-grade lower and middle-grade talismans at once. But for superior-grade talismans, even now, he can only use 5 or 6 at a time. As for supreme talismans, at most 2 or 3. Economizing is one aspect. The main reason is that the higher the grade of talisman, the more demanding its use. Defensive and auxiliary talismans are still manageable. As for attack talismans, if too many are activated at once without proper guidance and control, the power of the talismans might leak and even harm the user. This is considered a disadvantage of talismans. Chapter 154. It's time for the child to practice martial arts. The two women immediately performed a curtsy towards Lu Changxing. In their eyes that looked towards Lu Changxing, there was also a hint of fascination. After all, the Lu Changxing before them was handsome, with a tall and straight figure and a gentle temperament. Dressed in a green robe decorated with bamboo leaves, he gave off a refreshing feeling as though one were basking in the spring breeze. It even elicited a sense of goodwill. One could tell at a glance that this young man was a kindly person, a graceful and suave young master. Would you two ladies be willing to become my maids? Lu Changxing also stood up, with his hands clasped behind his back, and asked with a smile. He noticed the look in the women's eyes. To such a gaze, he was all too familiar. Under his care, it wouldn't take long for the life of these two women to thrive again, feeling vibrant and colorful. This humble girl is willing, Yao is willing. Both women responded immediately. All right, Manager Feng, I'm quite satisfied. Seeing their response, Lu Changsheng chuckled softly and nodded his head. He suddenly thought of the crying elder who created the immortal beauty technique. If he were to come to a place like White Jade Tower, surely it would be unimaginable to ask whether the other party was willing, right? Afterwards, Lu Changsheng completed the contract with Feng Jianyang and settled the final payment with spirit stones. Young Master Lu, you've spent over 1,000 spirit stones at our White Jade Tower, and from now on, you will be our member client. In the future, if you come to purchase maids, the deposit can be waived, and if you're not satisfied, there will be no loss incurred. Moreover, every so often, our White Jade Tower will also have a selection of high-quality maids available exclusively for our members to choose from. If young Master Lu is interested, I will have someone notify you when the time comes. At this moment, Feng Jianyang specifically handed over a white jade token to Lu Changsheng, saying so. Oh! Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng raised an eyebrow in surprise. He didn't expect that White Jade Tower had such a membership system. He wasn't concerned about waiving the deposit, but he was somewhat interested in the high-quality maids exclusive to members. Speaking of which, if I continue to spend, are there perks like an advanced member or something? Lu Changsheng took the white jade token and examined it closely. One side was engraved with the pattern of the White Jade Tower, and the other had the character Lu, probably pre-customized. The only downside is that a person's mental strength is limited and can't control too many puppets at the same time. With my current energy refinement late-stage cultivation level, I can only control 2 or 3 puppets at most, Lu Changsheng mused as he looked at the puppet in front of him. First and second rank puppets lacked their own consciousness. They had to be manipulated using the puppet control technique. It was akin to maneuvering a magic artifact. But in combat, having to control the artifact, use talismans, and also manage puppets was an enormous burden that made it impossible to unleash full power. There's a reason why puppetry is such an unpopular vocation, Lu Changsheng shook his head and said. He felt that crafting a few puppets would be enough. Too many would be useless. He couldn't achieve the army of puppets he imagined. If I break through to Foundation Establishment and give birth to Divine Sense, then I should be able to control several puppets at once, right? And I've heard that in the cultivation world, there are also techniques for cultivating Divine Sense. Lu Changsheng's eyes narrowed slightly as he contemplated. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.